if like I wasn't a feminist, I don't know what I would be, if that makes sense. Like I don't really have like that's just all I know, I guess. And I guess I haven't really educated
That actually
myself.
makes sense.
You know what I mean?
Feminism is basically the air that we breathe, and it's the water we swim in, whether people know it or not. It's ingratiated in society. So you may not have any other position other than that. So if you say, I really don't know anything besides feminism, I believe you.
Thank you.
It's the mainstream. Do you guys believe in the patriarchy?
But it's still a bad position. It's still like
fine.
just saying.
And what is that? So what is the patriarchy?
It's patriarchies and like men rule, right?
Mostly, right?
Men rule, women drool. Wait, what? Okay, that's
No, that was my fault.
Say it. Can you say the patriarchy is awesome?
it's not bad. It's not bad.
The patriarchy is awesome.
That one, that's for you, Grid One Motorsports.
Targets acquired.
Eagle 1, first strike. You have permission to engage the target.
Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
And welcome. Here we are, folks. Back again. And just having a good day today. Was over on Glenn's panel a little earlier, a few moments ago, and having a great time with that. This is an unscheduled, abnormal podcast for me because normally I don't do these. I don't do these on Wednesday. I normally do just the evening show, but today I felt a little what's the word? Froggy. So I jumped. So much going on out there today, or has been going on for the past couple of days in the news cycle. With the post debate stuff's really cranking up. We've got a lot of things going on with what's going to happen with the presidential election, who's going to be the candidates. We got all kinds of decisions coming out and being made. And on the other side of that, we've got a lot of local stuff going on in various places. Sorry, guys, I am sending a text. I'm sorry. But yeah, we're going to get into a lot of that stuff today. A lot of other stuff. Whatever last night was pretty interesting. I got to watch, I think maybe the first hour and a half, 2 hours of it before I crashed out. And it's very interesting. Nearly every woman on there claimed to not be a feminist, and yet I feel like they really were. We'll see. So let me just finish this up. And yeah, good times today, guys. Good times today. So let's start off with that. We've all been watching, I assume, the SCOTUS decision regarding Trump and his immunity. The problem that the prosecutors have right now in all of these various cases, especially the Jan 6 things, is deciding when he was and was not acting as a in his presidential capacity. Now, this isn't always as straightforward and cut and dried as you might think it is. And there's really basically almost anything counts as acting in his official capacity. It's really muddying the waters. It's really, honestly, it's kind of a what's the word I'm trying to think of here? It's kind of a bad situation for the prosecutors. The prosecutors are probably going to have some issues moving forward with this, and I don't know what they're going to do about it. Or initially, I thought that they might be able to, or I assumed that their tact would be to come after Trump in a couple of different ways, and that does not necessarily seem like that's going to happen. We'll see. I don't know. It's all very interesting to me, and we will see where it goes. And But it's really neat because it's really interesting to me because at the end of the day, this was all supposed to kind of happen, I think, pretty much in this way. See, that it's always been my contention that what the for lack of a better word, all right, so what the left really wanted was not necessarily they didn't necessarily want to actually put Trump in jail. I don't think that was their goal. I don't think that was their aim. I don't think they felt like they could do it. I don't think they had the power. I honestly don't think that they felt like they had any chance of actually winning. And really they didn't, except by playing dirty. And even then, you know, it was pretty terrible. And so they, but what they wanted was they needed the headlines, right? What they really needed was the headlines that they got, basically saying, here, you know, we've convicted former President Trump of whatever X, you know, whatever thing that was. They got him, right? So, and they did. They were able to get in some cases, they've been able to get those headlines. Man, I don't know. I think it's a tough road for them. And I think they're really going to have an issue moving forward with the way the judges are, the way courts are basically reacting now. I think at the end of the day, what we're going to end up seeing, guys, is we're going to end up seeing these higher courts, the appeal courts, overturn most of the decisions made in the lower courts. Now, obviously, the lower courts don't want that. They're going to fight against that, but it's going to happen. I don't see any way that it's not going to happen. But what will end up, but none of that matters because they got their headlines, and they will be able to point to that throughout the rest of the election cycle as Trump the felon, Trump was convicted, blah, 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 all this stuff. I originally thought that the appeals court in New York State was going to allow Trump to push for an immediate appeal within the next 2 or 3 weeks. And basically then he would have a headline, hey, I beat all these charges, right? And that would come probably in August, right? So because it would take, a couple of weeks to set the trial up. It could be delayed a couple of weeks, but if they really push for a speedy trial, it could, they could get into court pretty quickly. End of August, going into September, right before the election, they could have had that key headline of Trump's been relieved of all charges and everything's been dropped. Everything's great. Today, or yesterday, actually, we learned that Trump's appeal is set for September the 18th. And that's likely to get extended. That's a problem. It's very late. They're not going to be able to, they're really not going to be able to do anything about that in the press. And it's unfortunate, but I don't think it hurts Trump that much. On the Biden side, Biden has come under a lot of fire lately. We all know that. We've all seen it. You can't log into the internet right now without seeing something about how, so-and-so is going to replace Biden on the Democratic ticket. And that's true. And I've been saying this for months. It's just a question of when it's going to happen. The question of when it's going to happen is very interesting to me. Hello, Based. How are you? Based Street Racer. The question of when it's going to happen is very interesting to me because, I've argued with Anson about this ad nauseum, and without him in here, I won't dive too deep into it because I know he loves talking about that. And that's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Now we've come out with a couple of different articles that feel like that they will back Kamala, I don't think that's true. I really don't think they're going to back Kamala. I think that's a red herring to slip Newsom in. And, I could be wrong about that, but I really don't think so. Agoli sends in 50 Norwegian kroner. Hey, Grid One, 2 days ago, I was on stream and the goodness from you and chat was so warm. I hope I got my hope back. And W's. Well, W's for you. Chat, give Ogoli some W's. The dono is certainly appreciated. And even more than that is we really like to, I really enjoy being able to help people out. And I do this because, I've always considered myself as a teacher of young men. I've never really thought I was a teacher of women at all, although I've tried to help them along the way. But I believe that I do. I really try and help young men, and by young men, honestly, I mean like 30 and under, right? Like that's a thing for me. Welcome, Clover Tack. Glad to see you back with us. I've missed you, man. You hadn't been around. You've been on. Did you go to the show in wherever that was? There was a big firearms show. Did you go to that? So, and speaking of, somebody last night was asking me. I think it was Devon something or the other. Was GunCon, right? Yeah, it's busy time right now. I don't know why that's still sticking up there. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, GunCon's busy time. There was a fellow yesterday in the whatever chat who was asking me about or actually I think it was a Crucible chat that was asking me about the SIG P320, and I told him that I have it's a good gun, but you basically have to rebuild the whole thing. So. Hello, Legendary CEO. Good to see you in the chat. I just saw you over on Glenn's stream, so hopefully he's going pretty good. Andrew may or may not make it in today. He's under no commitment to come in. I just always send him the link because out of respect for all the help that he's giving me. And but Andrew's a legend, and he's pretty good. I don't know that, certainly he's not for everyone. He's definitely not for everyone's taste, but he's always been really cool to me. So, you know what? I'm going to do that. Let me, we'll get somebody up here to talk to. The debate between Michelle and Andrew was awesome the other day. We're going to bring Clover Tack up, and we'll talk to him for a little while, especially about this election. So, yeah. So, yeah. I'm actually going to be on the road, not this week. I think it's the week after. I'll be in Vegas, so for a few days. Doing some stuff with my wife. I don't know how I'm going to manage to stream or whatever, but I'll figure it out. So, yeah. There's Clover Tack. How are you, sir?
Yo, how are you, man?
Your volume's a little low.
Okay. I haven't changed anything. Give me a second.
Beating cheeks, you fag. What are you doing in here?
I'm at 100% grid. Are you sure?
It could just hang on. Everybody, does Clover sound pretty good? So you got
I was just on a live.
I do have my volume down at half, so
yeah.
I mean, I can hear you, but
I'll bump it a little bit.
There you go. I mean, I can hear you. I just as long as everybody else thinks you sound good.
That's 125%.
Oh wow. Oh, that's really good.
Okay.
That's really good. You had my back last night, Cheeks. Did I miss something that I didn't see on the whatever chat before you left? Okay. It's interesting that I get all of I get this weird nonsense about how I'm a incel or whatever. Nonsense that people say.
So if you're an incel, what's that make your wife?
I don't know. I don't know. And the fact that I have 2 kids, right? One of them left for Canada this morning, so I'm down to 1 in the house. So, but it'll be all right. They didn't call me an incel. Yeah, I forget. It was great last night because I kept calling out that female dating coach for being a feminist. They all literally when they went around the table, "Are you a feminist?" They all said no, except for one. I think one said she was a feminist, but they were all feminist. Like literally every one of them said feminist things and held feminist ideals. I thought that was very funny.
Oh, pretty much I would say pretty much any woman under the age of 50 has got a little bit of feminist.
It's I don't. My wife is
almost impossible for them to divorce themselves from it. They've been beat over.
They bathe in it. They bathe in it. And even in as early as kindergarten or pre-K, they're beating it into them. It's an interesting thing because of course my wife grew up in China, and so she is not feminist at all. It's very funny because she read this book by somebody that had worked in the company that she works for that is also Asian. The name of the book is Bully Market, I think is what. Let me double check that. Since I have the internet right here and everything. And it's this Bully Market. My Story of Money and Misogyny at Goldman Sachs, a book by Jamie Fiore Higgins. It is my wife actually read it and she's like, none of this is real. Like none of this actually happens, right? Like this is not real. So it's like she couldn't even recognize like what this woman was talking about. And you're talking about a woman that was making over $1 million a year in banking, right? And she was whining about how badly she was treated because she had to work. And she had, I don't know. If you read the book, it's really terrible. It's just like nothing but wine. So you don't need to drink any wine with it because it's right there in the book. So Clover Tack has muted himself. I didn't mute him. I promise. He's slightly.
Well, I know, but you made me up my microphone, so I don't know what it's picking up.
Oh, you sound great, man.
It's pretty good on it, but I'm also happen to be smoking a pipe while I'm sitting here chilling with you.
Oh, okay.
So I don't want a lot of heavy breathing and dragging and blowing smoke and
a distinguished man.
Pick up. So yeah.
Distinguished.
So it's a courtesy thing. I try to mute when I'm not talking. It's just a habit for so many lives over so many years because you never know when the door will open or you'll get a phone call or anything can happen.
Oh, I mean, mics are a real thing, man.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but yeah, all right, that's cool, man. That's cool stuff. How was GunCon?
Dude, it was off the hook, man. It was amazing. I've never been to another industry event like it. It was my first year. I think it was the second or third year they've had it. It was my first year going to it. I hadn't been because I was super, super skeptical. The amount, just the ratio of industry versus creators that's there, and then you got public on top of that. It just did not seem like it was going to be good for ROI. And then I had buddy Sean from the We Like Shooting podcast that I respect immensely. Good friend, and he for months was he'd asked was I going, and was trying to get me to go, and I trusted him, and he was not wrong. Showed up, and that event is it's geared toward creators. It really is. It was a show, of course, the Gun Collective, John Patton, the Gun Collective, and Brownells, with the help of Brownells, of course, is who puts that on. And you can tell that show was set up by a creator, by John, and a lot of thought was put into the creator side of things, because one of the most frustrating fucking things, and if you make the big show in Goals, the GOA show in Knoxville, hopefully in August, would be cool. You'll get to see what I'm talking about, and you probably deal with it with other shows anyway. But the public sucks, man. Like,
Yeah.
you're trying to do some interviews and get video product and do other things, and they're snatching that out of your hand and getting in between you and the camera, and screwing up the shot and just everything, right? Just talking loud, and it's horrible. And I mean, in the immediate vicinity. And that show, one of the cool things about it is the way that they had it set up is our badges were different colors depending on who we were. Not who we were individually, but you get what I'm saying. So the attendees had a different color, the creators had a different color, the panelists, the sponsors, so forth and so on. And so it was real easy to tell who was who. And that was done, I'm assuming, I didn't actually ask Patton, but I'm assuming that was done for a reason. And the reason was that, unlike something like SHOT Show or In Around, where you do got a little colored stripe usually, it has your name and it has all this other garbage on the badge, right? This was like a solid freaking color of that color, right? With then text on it. So it was really easy to tell the color. And it was interesting because you could walk up to a booth, and those people at that booth, the industry people, that they would be covered up. And if they looked over and seen your orange badge, they would drop whoever they're talking to mid fucking conversation, walk over to you and say, "Well, what do you need? Can I help you with something? What can we do?" "Yeah, I want to do a video." "Cool." And they'll just step back, set everything up, and go like the public just drop them like a hot potato, like they don't even exist. It was crazy.
SEMA used to be like that.
I've never had that experience before. It was
SEMA
awesome.
Years ago. You couldn't even get in without having been vetted. Even the press, you had to actually be press. Like, you couldn't just say you wrote as a freelancer for something and they wouldn't let you in.
Yeah, it had to be credentialed. Yeah.
Content creators were not allowed, not press. And SEMA used to be really cool that way. And you got a colored badge, and your badge directly and it really did affect how people treated you. My badge always said buyer and not manufacturer for some reason. But and I got way different treatment as a buyer than say like there were press people would come by, various personalities would come by. They would have but as a buyer, if I walked up, I was literally the guy that they wanted to talk to, right? And that was a big deal. That was a big thing. I always liked it, and I've always felt that they kind of got away from it. I understand why. SEMA is now, almost anybody can get in. PRI is almost the same way. It's
influencing content creators, that is definitely media nowadays.
Yeah.
I get it once upon a time, in its infancy or whatever, but it is now. But there's still a difference between media and somebody that's just hobby. There's a certain level of professionalism that goes into media, right? And that has nothing to do with your video quality. You can make the most awesome videos, entertaining videos and everything out there. But that doesn't mean you're media. And so that was one thing about this. It was capped. Now, this event actually maxed capacity. So
was it invite only, or was it?
Oh yeah. It's limited number of tickets for the public. invite only for the industry side as well as invite only for the creator side. So total control over the amount of people who attend. And then, but like I said, they maxed the facility out as far as capacity. So there was some
Where was
conversation. Do they move it? Grinnell, Iowa.
Okay.
Yeah, middle of nowhere, basically.
Right. Well, that's perfect space.
So
That's the perfect.
yeah, it was interesting. They was having some conversations. We had a little get together pizza party thing Thursday night. Friday was range day all day. Then we had a dinner that we had there Friday night. We hung out after the dinner, of course. Guys had cigars, brought in cases of cigars and beer and just all kinds of stuff. And then the show, of course, was Saturday, and we hung out Saturday night. So the hangout thing after the shows was pretty neat. And so having a conversation yeah, the location came up because of maximum capacity. And well, I don't know if we move this to grow or, what do we do? And I said, here's the thing. This was a phenomenal show. And I'm like, I don't know that you try to grow it. Like, there's nothing wrong with having a consistently phenomenal show that's a smaller show. And if you move it and try to grow it, are you going to have issues, right? Because of that, is it not going to be? Do you want a bigger mediocre show, or do you want an awesome smaller show every single time? And I think I go with the latter myself. But one of the things come up about the location and it being like there's a Walmart there. There's no major restaurants really there. Hotel choices are slim. Hotel motel.
I've been in the Midwest, man. I get it.
Yeah, it was super slim pickings. And one of the things is they said, well, there's one of the reasons that they like that location is because unlike a SHOT Show or, NRAMs that are in big cities and things like that, a lot of these other shows, there's not other things to do. So there's not a lot. So when we do hangout, let's hang out after the show, right? Or let's all hang out here in the parking lot.
Everybody goes to the same bar.
Yeah. Like it's all, yeah. You're all everybody is kind of in one place. And that increases the opportunity you have to network and get to know people and things like that, which is really cool.
Yes, that's an interesting thing because first of all, I'm going to address Coyote Killer here. Never really liked gun shows, usually overpriced and crowded. This wasn't a gun show; it was an industry show that we're talking about. But I agree. I haven't been to a gun show in a couple of years, and I think part of it is because it's annoying the way that because it's a gun show, private party purchases are treated differently. And I hate that. That's just fucked up. And I don't like it.
I've got two takes on that. The first take I've got on that is I worked media for the largest gun show in the world, Wanamaker's Tulsa Arms Show. Every November, every April, if you ever get a chance, that needs to be on your bucket list to go to that regardless.
Okay.
Because it's amazing. 11 acres of gun show. Come on. All under a roof.
Yeah, why would I not want to do that?
Come on, dude. Yeah.
The only problem is I can't buy pistols there. I could maybe buy long guns in Texas.
Could, but you'd have to have them shipped. But yeah.
Yeah, I have to have them shipped.
So anyway, once you've made that show, all other gun shows are tiny and horrible anyway.
Right.
But my approach to gun shows, and I get what Cody was saying out there. I've literally worked the gun show circuits before, and I've seen gun shops jack up their prices by 10, 15, 20% over what you can
they
get
can then mark them down
in the store over what you can get them in the store, right, to take them to a show. Like I seen them in the store literally the day before they packed them up and sent them to the show, and they were cheaper. So that is a thing, and I'll acknowledge that. But here's my thing. I've gotten quite a few deals, bunches and bunches of deals before at gun shows. To me, that's the challenge. That's the fun. Where's the deal, right? I'm different. I'm looking to buy something that's a deal. I'm not looking to buy a specific thing. If you're one of these people that, you don't have a large collection, you don't have a wide swath of interest, things like that. And I'm not. I'm an all of the above guy when it comes to guns.
Right.
but you know, and if you're that type of a person and you really don't care as long as it's a steal, that's fun. That's the game you can play that will make any gun show interesting. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
where's the best deal in this show? There's a gem, there's a deal somewhere in that show.
Yeah.
I don't care what show it is, and the catch is to find it. You know.
So I used to play that game, and I played it with guns and reloading equipment and holsters, especially. I
Yeah, it may not be guns. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, that
absolutely right.
one holster, you know, that like something I've been looking at for a while, but maybe it's like too expensive retail, but somebody's got a trade in or something floating around. That stuff's cool. My problem is that in the olden days, I could go to a gun show here in Tennessee, and I could take a gun with me and sell it to just a random dude that walked up, and nobody cared because it was a private party sale. And I can do that any other day of the year in that same parking lot of that gun show, which I have before. But during the gun show, it's a felony to sell the same guy, the same gun in the same parking lot just because the gun show is going on. And that's the most fucked up thing to me that I just can't get past it.
Yeah,
and that's kind of turned me off of gun shows for a while.
Yeah, that's jacked up. We don't have that here, thankfully.
Oh, really?
And that's also that's also not a thing.
Close the gun show loophole.
That's also not a thing in Tulsa. So
okay. So. Well, I mean, I've literally, like, my favorite place to buy guns is Home Depot.
Yeah,
in the parking lot. So that's mainly because it's a big parking lot, and I can always like find a place.
It's interesting you say that, because we went a couple weekends ago. We had to take a walk behind trimmer back to Home Depot.
Yeah,
and so I couldn't quite remember. It'd been so long since I'd been. I couldn't quite remember how you pulled it, where the drive was, and how you pulled in, because it was in a big town and all that. And I told my wife, I said, "Hey, I got to figure out how to get in here." I said, "Last time I was here, I don't even remember what I was here for." I said, "Probably to buy or sell a gun."
Yeah.
So same thing. Home Depot parking lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great because there's always a corner where you can get where it's just you. So that if the guy's calling you, like, yeah, I'm in whatever vehicle parked over here all by myself, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I see you." And it just makes it easy.
Yeah, for me, I can park. I usually put the stuff in my trunk or whatever, so I can park where the trunk is facing away from the store and the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, it's just a great place to do. Sports.
Not that it's shady. Not that it's shady or it's illegal, but like, I don't want anybody knowing my business either.
Well, yeah. Who wants people to know your business, right? Well, so I did a deal at Sportsman's Warehouse one time in their parking lot. Now it was an outer parking lot, so technically it was part of the mall, but whatever. And so I had a Glock 23, I think, the 40, and 22, Glock 22, and I just did, I got rid of all my 40s, man. Like 40s, like, it's just all 40 brass does is piss me off when 9mm brass gets in it in the tumbler. So I got tired. I got tired of 40. I got rid of all of them. And I had this one Glock 22 out. And so I, was the guy had a Remington 1100, I think. And I wanted that 1100. And I'm like, all right, I'll trade you the Glock for it. And he showed up, and I'm sitting there looking at the 1100, and the guy's sitting there looking at the 22. Of course, I don't have any 40 ammo with me, or I'm not stupid, right? Like, there's no 40 ammo with me at all. So all of a sudden a patrol car comes rolling by, and I'm like, what's going on there? And so he rolls by, and he looks at me, and he rolls down the window, and he says, selling a gun? I said, yep. He says, all right, then we got a call. I had to come check it. I'm like, okay. He just kept driving along, and it was awesome. Yeah. But I think that technically that's borderline, because it's you're in the parking lot of a place that sells firearms. I don't know.
But then I mean, it can be, depending on. I don't think it's not like going to be like a felony or anything, but I think there can be potentially some trespass issues or some weird
Yeah, well, and I was
misdemeanor
my
stuff or
concern was
something.
is I think I was actually technically in the mall's parking lot,
Yeah.
and they had a security guard that was known to harass people the overflow from sportsmen's.
Yeah.
So I was like,
How
you know,
long ago-
this guy
I'm curious-
really that petty.
I'm curious how long ago this was. How long, about how long ago this was? Was it kind of before social media or during?
This was 2010-ish, 2011.
Okay. So social media was sort of around.
Yeah, it was around, but it wasn't like now.
Yeah, most law enforcement. I mean, you got to live in a free state, obviously, and in a place in that free state where law enforcement is pretty laid back. But most of them, they understand that, first of all, it's legal, and then second of all, they understand that you're trying to do it in a place that's as safe as possible.
Yeah.
They'd rather go to a call that there's some dudes, in the parking lot looking at guns, and find out that it's just somebody looking to sell or something like that, rather than, hey, there's a dead body in an alley or something, you know what I mean, or something. They'd much rather make that call. So,
Garrus, what do you need your rifle for? Are you looking just to start shooting? If so, the only answer is Ruger 1022. If you're looking to hunt or something like that, I mean, historically, I'm not a lever action fan. I would say like a Savage Axis or a Mossberg, whatever. Then they're like $400, $500 price range, and just start there if you're looking for like a hunting centerfire gun.
Also, it's going to depend on where you live, or
Yeah.
I dictate what you can have. I've almost come to, like, I don't disagree with the 22. I think whether you're talking kid or adult, I think a first 22 is a pretty safe bet. Ammo's cheap. You can go out, you can learn manual arms and safety and have a lot of fun for not a lot of money. But then I think AR platforms are so reasonably priced nowadays, like the entry level stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking high end stuff, but for your first, who needs? I mean, get to entry level and then upgrade along, or or whatever. But I've seen decent AR platform stuff in that $300 to $400 range. Which
I think you can get a Savage.
Ruger is.
Yeah, you can get the Springfield or the Smith & Wesson or a Palmetto, all of them under $800. So,
you can get a PSA even cheaper. I would wager you could get a PSA for less than $5.
Yeah, maybe. But so my only problem with an AR for the first rifle is the number of accessories that you tend to need. You need magazines. You need a bunch of, most people are going to
depends on how crazy you want to get.
I know.
Usually they're going to come with one or two or even three.
Yeah, they don't come with iron sights. They don't come with a bunch of stuff. So I tell people myself, and plus for the first time shooter, I tend to lean more towards the more normal looking guns, just so their neighbors don't freak out until they kind of get used to the idea of a first.
Fact that they have guns. Yeah.
The fact that they have guns, and then, but I do agree that an AR makes an excellent first rifle, especially just in plain old everyday normal 223.
Yes.
Cheap to shoot, cheap to reload if you want to do that.
Still cheap, yeah. Still cheap enough to shoot. In a lot of states you could hunt with it. I'm not gonna say
a lot of states you can hunt most things with.
Home defense situation could work as well. It can check multiple boxes. Check multiple boxes really well. Not to say you couldn't do a lot of that with a Ruger 1022, but an AR platform, a 5.56 would be more optimal. Not the most optimal, but more optimal anyway.
I like to say that, it's kind of what you want to do. Like if you're looking for a hunting rifle, I would say, I told a buddy of mine this 3 years ago, same kind of deal, right? Now he's a defensive pistol guy, so his manual of arms was pretty good because he teaches defensive pistol, and he's like, I've never thought about owning a hunting rifle. I think I want a hunting rifle. And I said, well, go buy yourself a Savage Axis or the Mossberg, whatever, or the Ruger American, or the Browning, the lower end Browning Able, the Wall.
Mossberg MVP, by the way.
The MVP. Thank you. That's what it is. Yeah. Go buy any of those that are kind of, in that sub $800 range. Don't go buy a $1,300 Christensen Arms or something like that for your first gun. It's cool if you can afford it, do it. But chances are you're probably going to want a different caliber or something like that later. And then you can, once you kind of refine what you like, then you can buy what you truly like. And
well, I've seen in that sub 800, I've seen Tikas, I've seen Howas, I've seen Weatherby.
Tika's a great gun to start with. Actually,
I've seen a lot. Of course, you're mentioning staple brands. Ruger, Savage, Mossberg.
Yeah.
I consider those staple brands.
I think Tika and Howa are both staple brands, especially in the discount stores. Howa used to only be in discount stores, really. Even though they're a great brand, and I've honestly the smoothest bolt action I think I have in my entire arsenal is a Howa 308. There's just something about the way the Japanese put that. Now I don't know if they're saying that today, but there's something about the way the Japanese put the guns together back then that were just that thing is butter, man. Right. It is butter. The barrel sucks. It needs a new barrel, but but the actual gun's really good. And I like the Howa actually a lot. But you're unlikely to walk into a Sportsman and find now a Tika. You can find a Tika. The Tika is a great gun. Actually. I have a friend of mine who won a PRS match. Now, this has been years ago when PRS was kind of in its infancy, but he won a PRS match with a bone stock Tika 6.5 Creedmoor with a Burris. I forget what scope I'm thinking XTR2 on it. And like his total firearm package was less than some people had in their barreled actions, which was really funny. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, it's good stuff. I forget I think a lot of people forget that Mossberg make a really decent bolt gun.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm not the biggest fan. I mean, if I was going to rate Ruger Mossberg Savage, and talking about the cheaper line, talking about the MVP, the Axis 2 of the American, I'm gonna go American or Ruger Savage Mossberg in that order 1, 2, 3. But that's not to say they're bad. It's just preference.
So the last Ruger American I had was the mountain rifle in stainless that had that weird plastic stock. And that thing in 308 was the most brutal gun I think I've ever shot.
Yeah. I weighted my stocks when both of my Americans, when they first came out, I bought a 308 and a 30-06. Yeah. You can imagine, since you shot that, you can imagine it in a 30-06.
I don't want to know that.
And right away was like, okay, this ain't going to work. Well, they had first came out, and that's some of the oldest videos on my channel too. When they first came out, I got to find a way to make these stocks beefier and heavier. So I used a combination.
It's razor thin as well. I mean, the thing will separate your shoulder like a cleaver.
Yeah. I used a combination of some PVC pipe and rockite. If anybody's ever familiar with that, it's basically concrete. And BBs to sure up, make it more rigid, and put a little bit of weight behind it. Of course, now we've got many aftermarket options, and so I've went that route since then. But yeah, I will say that especially in your larger cartridges, those the poly stocks on any of the cheaper ones, honestly, are going to be a little bit brutal. May want a butt pad at the very least. Spend $10 on a slip-on butt pad or something.
Yeah, my Savage Axis, I had one in 6.5 Creedmoor, which I don't have any. I regret heavily selling it. and then I had one in. I still have the one in 223. The one in 223 is amazingly accurate. Like I can't even believe for the money, it is ridiculously accurate. My son loves it. Like it's his go-to bolt gun. If he's going to shoot a bolt gun, that's the gun he wants. And the 6.5 was good too. The only problem really with the Savage is they take that basically it's very specific magazine. It's proprietary mag, and they're expensive, and they only hold like 4 or 5 rounds. And
well, standard Rugers are too. Those standard Ruger Americans are just a box mag.
Yeah.
Now the Ranch or whatever, they do the different mags for those.
Medium size, burdened maybe an elk/moose. If there's something for me to only buy one, or do I need several? Cheapest/best. Hashtag broke suspect.
That one didn't. That's interesting.
I heard it, but it didn't come up.
Yeah, it didn't come up in my chat, but yeah, it absolutely. He did it through StreamYards. So I may need to do something with the StreamYards. Yeah. So, Ogoli, you're in Norway, so I have no idea what's available to you.
Yeah.
So
what was the question?
Let me see if I can pull it back up. I can't pull it. Let me hang on. I got to go to StreamYards. That's in an entirely different space. There we go. I'll read it. Maybe I can re-trigger. Well, I can re-trigger it. Give me 1 second.
Donating $21. I want to hunt deer and medium-sized bird and maybe an elk/moose. If there's something for me to only buy one, or do I need several? Cheapest/best. Hashtag broke suspect.
All right, Ogoli. For deer and medium size, I'm assuming a medium sized bird. So for deer, I mean, you're in Norway, so I have no idea what kind of deer you're going to hunt there.
Said elk too, didn't he?
And elk. So if I were going to do
30 caliber or better, for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be 30 cal or a high performance 7 mil, something like that.
Yeah.
If I had to pick one, and it pains me to say this, if I had to pick one, it would probably be, man, it's hard to beat like a 308. You can load it up heavy enough, but you can't get those long shots on elk or moose. The problem is that these are 2 different rifles that you need. You need like something with medium power. You need a medium power cartridge like a 308, 6.5 Creed, 243, 270, something like that. That that are good for deer and won't beat you up. But for deer, for elk, now I have friends that have shot elk and antelope, but not moose, at out to 600, 700 yards with a 6.5 Creedmoor. But they're killers, man. Like they know what they're doing. If you're new, man, I don't know.
Well,
yeah, sure that. Sorry,
something like a 300 Win Mag. You could go with a lighter projectile. For something like deer. Deer that are kind of on a smaller side. You could go with a little lighter projectile, and I think you'd be okay.
Yeah, that's why I kind of wonder if maybe one of the higher performance, like 7mm WSM or 300 WSM, might be better, because he can do both. He can do it all, and it's less powder. He can reload. It's just but I don't know what ammo availability is. 30-06 might be the answer, although I don't think they have 30-06 in Norway. That's a great question. This is a great question. I had no idea. You can use a bow and arrow, no problem. Okay, that's cool. If you can get within bow and arrow range of a moose or elk, you can kill it with whatever you want to. So, but for birds, you're going to need a shotgun. 12 gauge, doesn't matter. Just pick one. They will all get the job done. And yeah, I don't know that I answered his question. I think you're right. I mean, 300 Win Mag, 300 short mag, 7mm Wisdom, 7mm Rum, something like that. So I think that there's what are the laws, Ogoli, in regards to caliber? Because I know that, like in Germany, you can't own a military anything that the military uses. So you can't own a 308, but you can own like a 300, whatever, But you can't own a 30-06 or 308 because those are military cartridges. So. Weird. 25-06 on a moose or elk, man. That's too small. Yeah, you can't own a military size. So 308's out automatically. 30-06 is probably out. 25-06 is weird because I used a lot of those. I like that cartridge actually. Have you shot one, Clover? Clover?
Yeah, sorry. I had a call.
Oh, that's all right, man.
My bad.
I just thought maybe you dropped off.
No. I got a call. So what was up?
He was asking, I was asking you about 25-06 because I think 25-06 is an interesting cartridge, but I still wouldn't use it for moose or elk.
Oh, I love 25-06.
Yeah, 25-06
love.
is legit.
But it is a specialty, I guess, or a niche cartridge, I would say. Yeah, I seen somebody had asked that I played with the New Americans. Yeah, definitely.
Have you ever shot much of the 30-06 Sabot rounds that have the
accelerators?
Yeah.
Yeah, I load accelerators, not just 30-06, but I do some in 30-30 and 308 too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't shot any of the 308 ones. I've only shot them in a 30-06, and I love that 25 caliber projectile.
Yeah, they're fun.
In a 30-06. I mean, it's just ridiculously flat. Like it just shoots so flat.
Yeah. Well, it should,
Right. Yeah. I mean, that thing's moving too. The nice thing is with the Sabot, you don't get the barrel wear.
Yeah, so. And with like you can't, to my knowledge, you can't buy those anymore. I've never seen any.
I was about to ask, have you seen them? I haven't seen them in a while.
I haven't. I tell you what, I buy. E. Arthur Brown. This is a company that's been around for a very, very long time. Sells the Sabots, and then you just load your own. That's what I think do.
I found that in a search once.
Yeah. I've got I don't know, don't tell me how many thousands of the Sabots I've got. They're not horribly expensive at all. They're just little pieces of plastic. So, yeah, and then just pick your projectile and go.
Yeah.
And there's tons of recipes and whatnot out there. So just find you something. Find you something, back off of it. I don't know, maybe 20% or so, and then work your ladders up from there.
Yeah. Are you having any trouble getting powder at all?
I haven't tried to get powder. So
are you reloading at all now? I mean, because I know a lot of people have done the math, and right now it's just not actually worth it.
Okay, so to me, that's the case all the time. There's only certain things, honestly, that's worth reloading. If you need bulk, you've got a couple hours to spend, and some 9 or some 380. I've got some testing to do, and I just need to put rounds down the pipe, right, to test for a company or something. Then yeah, I mean, I can get in there if I for whatever reason I don't got time or I can't find a company to send me this stuff, yeah, I'll get over there on the Dillon and crank out, rounds for a couple hours, crank the radio, chill, whatever. That's cool. But if you're talking about, like, is it worth it? You're talking about saving money, right?
Yeah, I think that's
Specialty ammo, and things like that. That's where you start, and more expensive, larger stuff. Like, for example, 300 Win Mag, 300 Winchester Magnum. That's a 308 projectile, common, cheap, right? Powders are pretty much the same as anything else. You've already got the brass, and as opposed to $60-$70 a box, yeah, you can save a fuck ton of money, loading that stuff. But so it just depends on what you load, and the rest is a convenience factor. Is the way I always say it. So, but
yeah,
I'm one of these that, whether you're talking about my ammo, or you're talking about my reloading supplies,
yeah,
I'm one of these that I don't wait until there's a damn panic like most people.
yeah,
I will buy if I need to order in good times. If I need to order a pound or two, I'll order 5 or 6. Right.
yeah.
If I need to order 1,000 projectiles, I'll order 5,000. In good times. And then so when it starts drying up, or things can happen that's not even geopolitical or anything like that. Supply chain issues here. The last decade or so, we had a powder plant catch on fire, and so we had some setbacks because of that. So I've honestly I've suggest the same exact thing when you're buying your groceries. If you need 3 cans of beans, buy 6. If you
I
need
mean, you're not
one
wrong.
package, if you need 1 package of rice, buy 4.
Mhm.
That's just and that moves over into pretty much every aspect of my life. Even if I go to the hardware store and I need 4 bolts for this project, usually I'll buy
Mhm.
10 or I'll buy 8 or I'll start something. You know what I mean? I always buy more than I need. Now that's assuming that obviously I've got the money to do that. I get some people are on a paper thin budget. It's all they can do to get what they need, if that's the case. But if you can spend the extra, even if you need 2 cans of beans and you just buy 1 extra can, right? You're ahead of the game. So same thing with everything. Do that
It's
with
an
everything.
interesting thing because I'm in that same boat. I mean, I actually every time I see the pistol powder that I use, because there during the scare, I got really low, man. Like really, like I was like within a couple of pounds.
Yeah,
which
with
is,
what you do, you probably did. Yeah.
yeah, with the amount of because the amount of pistol powder I go through, it's actually not that much, right? Because pistols, like, I think my load's 3.4 grains, right? So it's a pound lasts a long time, but
That's almost 2,000, about 1,500 rounds a pound.
yeah. And so, when I'm sitting there and I start getting down to that last couple of pounds, I'm like, well, okay, now I've got 3,000 rounds of pistol that I can make up. I have other pistol powders, and as a matter of fact, I keep 8 pounds of tight group around just in case. Like just in case. And but go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and two, a lot of people don't realize. I mean, if you keep your powder and your primers, in a cool, dry, dark place, that's what I do. We got specific spots for that. And I always, when I crack the seal on powder, or the date that I buy the primers, I don't do it for the powder, but when I crack the seal on it, I will put a date. For primers, I always Sharpie a date on there when I buy them. Of course, you can look up lot numbers and be able to figure that information out, but it's just easier if I do it that way. But I've got powders over there. I've got primers that they got to be 20 or 30 years old, probably some. And I would load them right now and trust them 100%. And the same way with powder, I've got powder that has been opened that's probably 20 years old, and I could go over there and load up 20 rounds or something for hunting or whatever, and would 100% trust it. So you got to realize a lot of people are under the misconception that when it comes to the components that they're perishable, and they're only perishable if they're kept in the wrong conditions.
Well, I mean, like anything else, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
in the last scare or run or whatever you want to call it, I kind of got caught out because I had enough. I bought my usual amount of powder for the pistol rounds I load. And then the scare happened, and normally it takes a while before they get to my powder. So I don't really I'm like, whatever. And then it was gone. Like it was gone, like almost immediately. And the whole scare drug on, because of the COVID, it took forever for stuff to come back in. And now literally every time I see it, I buy a can. I mean, it's $40. That's cheap enough. And I will just stick it back. I don't open it. I just stick them back and they're fine. And I'm probably, pushing the envelope on how much powder I should have on hand at any given time, but who cares?
I don't even know my state law, and that's a state law. It varies by state, but the last time I checked anyway, which was many decades ago, probably. But yeah, nobody cares and nobody's
checking.
That's one of them things that's going to be an add-on charge. And that's a lot of gun laws that we deal with, anti-2A laws are add-ons. Like nobody's breaking down your door over any of that or keeping track.
Yeah.
If you do go off and do a bunch of stupid crap, they're just going to add that charge to the long list of other things you've done. So keep your nose clean and you're fine. Nobody's going to care.
Yeah, don't do anything stupid.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying that's an excuse for anti-2A, all gun laws are infringements, right?
Right.
I'm not making excuses, but a lot of things can be avoided, and you can get by with a lot of gray area things if you just live your life and not get in any trouble.
I mean, for me, I've got a Frank. I think I told you a few weeks ago. It still hasn't changed. I bought the Frankfurt Arsenal Express.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
They were at the show this weekend, and I got to look at those. Up close.
Yeah, it's an awesome press.
Yeah.
It works great. Super easy to set up.
And their kit's reasonably priced too. They had a kit there that they were showing that come with dies, one set of dies anyway, and like everything you need. And I forgot what it was, but I thought, man, that's a nice press, and it's very reasonably priced.
Yeah, I couldn't beat the price when I bought mine. I got a pretty good deal on it, but I got it set up. I can run 9mm with my eyes closed on it. The primer system works perfect. Everything's great. I haven't touched it in 2 months, and I have actually now have the bullet feeder for it. I have everything because that was the only thing I had to do before was like pull the handle, put a bullet on, pull a handle, put a bullet on, just keep rolling. And you could do probably 1,000 rounds in an hour, pretty easy. And now it's even better than that. And I'm waiting for Mark 7 to do the auto drive for the X10. And if they get the auto drive where I can just, hit the button, press play, and then just keep filling the powder measure, that'll be the end of it.
As long as you got your alarms and all that set, that way, because ain't nothing worse than running something like that without those safety mechanisms and walking away for a few minutes.
Then, I had a powder measure break. It cracked, and so what happened is that when it would go to fill, it would flex, and sometimes it wouldn't flex much, and it would drop the appropriate amount of powder. But sometimes it would flex, and it would drop either no powder or very little. And it took me a while to realize what was going on because I kept checking it and checking, and there was nothing wrong. There was I'd run a few and it'd be fine. I'd run a few and it'd be fine. The powder measure had actually cracked. And so when it would separate under the force of the shell coming up. And that was a problem. And that caused me no end of anxiety. I still think I have like 300 rounds that I need to take apart because I don't trust them.
Yeah.
So.
Coyote out there has got a good tip. I think that's more for the newbie reloaders, but says he usually buys 1 pound and grabs another different kind.
I did that.
Test reloads, and so I've done that. I've got spiral notebooks around here. Of course, most of it I got a pretty good idea. I can look at a burn rate chart and be able to tell. But Yeah, I've done that as well, because you never know when you've got to switch over to something else, and it may not be optimal, but it's like, this will get me by. It'll work. And so it's good to know that stuff for sure. So playing around with different powders is something that I highly recommend for the newbies out there.
Yeah. I've been very lucky, and I say I've been very fortunate. I've been pretty lucky that I only bought a few powder. I mean, I say a few. I have a bunch of powders that I have a half a pound of because I tried it and I didn't like it, or it wasn't.
Or you sold the gun that had the cartridge that you used it for, or something.
Yeah, I got a couple of those.
Yeah.
I kind of went down a rabbit hole with a bunch of the rifle cartridges there for a while. I was really working up loads for rifle cartridges, and now I'm down to about probably half a dozen powders that I actually use all the time. So
you need to dial in your, and it totally depends on how many things you load for. I mean, we talked about it before. I load for probably, or have the capability to load anyway, for probably like 40 different cartridges. So I'm going to obviously have a larger powder selection than most. But yeah, you want to try to narrow it down as much as you can. What powders will work for the, optimally for the, majority of those cartridges, and then focus on, stockpiling, for lack of a better word, those particular ones. But then also having, again, playing around and having some alternatives, because you never know. I mean, Varget was one of those. Varget's super popular, still is, and there for the longest
I never
time,
could make Varget work.
Good luck getting any Varget. I don't hardly use Varget either, but I'm just saying a lot of old timers do, and I never could.
It's too temperature sensitive. It's all of the bad things. All the bad things. Welcome to the guys from Glen Lawrence.
Nice.
Thank you for the raid. You folks are tops in my book. We'll move off the powder subject here in just a minute. It gets kind of dry and technical. I understand. But I never could get Varget to work for anything that I really wanted to have work. I understand why bench rest guys use it, because it's pretty consistent, but it's not temperature stable in my experience. I know a lot of people claim it is, but I've had wild variations due to temperature, and I just don't like it. I much prefer CFE 223 or a couple of other.
I think the beauty is those swings, and this is just my experience. Those swings are at least predictable.
They are predictable.
And so, as long as you keep that in mind, but that's an added step of, how hot is it today, or how cold is it today? And that's going to affect your dope, rather than just taking it out and pulling the trigger,
Well, and that's the thing we've got high tech powders like CFE 223, where it is literally that. It's just
right.
Pull trigger, put the dope, put it in your phone and pull pull trigger, and that's what that's what I like. That's what I'm kind of used to. So, so we'll move off of that. We don't want to kill anybody too much here. Who all's in the chat? I'm who all made it over?
Everybody is over here.
Everybody made it. Hopefully you all say hi. So what did you hear the start of the show where I was talking about
I caught the tail end of some
just a lot of the
Kamala or something you were talking about. There's the tail end.
Have you been following much of the 2A cool stuff going on, where they've I guess they're going to move forward with the is it the Texas case with the anti-suppressor law? Even though they kicked it back, they're going to move forward with it again in some form or fashion.
Yeah. I've been out of the loop for about the last week or so, traveling, being out of pocket or whatever for that event. But I'm starting to get caught back up on some 2A and political things. But yeah, it's been, you know, I haven't been able to deep dive into any of it, but last week was a pretty good week. We've had several good weeks lately for the 2A.
Yeah, really, it's everything's really good. Did you see Trump go to PSA and talk to the owner? It is awesome.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It was an awesome deal. That was awesome, and I liked everything about that. Welcome, Jay Elkin. Ekin. I'm not. There's no L in there, so it's Jay Ekin. And yeah. By the way, guys, we didn't lose Kat. Kat was on vacation, and I think she is. I know she's back, but I haven't seen her on much, so I'm assuming that she's getting caught up from after being on vacay. So, and I don't normally
back into it when you go on vacation.
What's that?
Got to ease back into it when you go on.
Yeah. Vacay. Well, and I don't normally do a daytime stream on Wednesday. I decided to today because a lot of the stuff that was.
I was pleasantly surprised when I seen it. It pop up, and I was like, okay, well, that's kind of strange. But today is kind of today's was kind of an off day for me. I got a lot of stuff done yesterday. Don't have a whole lot left to do from follow up from the event, but you've got a finite amount of time to try to get that all situated, scheduled, and you got emails and phone calls and things you got to field, and today is just one of those. Of course, tomorrow will be a dead day too because it'll be a holiday. But finally caught a break, so it was nice seeing you out.
Well, to kind of change up the communication here a little bit, if there's anyone in the chat that would like to come up and talk, or if there's any of the I haven't seen Michelle in the chat today. She was here the other day, and I had a great discussion while Andrew was on. I don't know that Andrew's going to be back in today. I don't even know if he's awake. That's not he's not usually here, so I never really expect him to be here. But he did have a great conversation, in my opinion, the other day with Michelle while she was on, and that was a good time. And if there's anybody else that'd like to jump up, I'm happy to bring you up and have you talk. I'm kind of just doing news and current events and whatever's going on today.
Yeah, if somebody jumps up, we don't even have to talk guns. We don't have to.
Yeah, we definitely don't have to talk guns.
It's highly recommended. It's highly recommended, though. It's highly recommended. Come on.
Hey, thanks for the sub, Sweet Aunt T. If you would like to jump up on my panel, that would be great. You're welcome to. You had some good things to say on Glenn's panel. You're welcome to come up if you are still in the mood to.
It's a great name.
So we were just talking about, and actually kind of went down, and this is the problem with talking about reloading at all, is you'll go down rabbit holes because all of a sudden you start talking about this powder, that powder, or whatever. But the general subject is it worth doing? And I think for like pistol, it's really not. Right now, it's getting there though, because pistol 9mm ammo went down pretty good. It was it actually was, I think, more than reasonable there for a little while, and then it's just slowly started to just rise right back up. And
that's interesting because that's not what I'm seeing. I actually was at the local gun shop yesterday, the local gun shop, not even big box or anything. And they had it at $12 a box. So, for 9, talking about for 9.
Okay. So what are you seeing a box? Because the best I've seen lately is about 15 a box.
50 box of 50. It was $12 out. $12 out the door for
$12 out the door. That's like 2004 prices.
Seller and Bellet. Trying to think of what it was, but I think it was Seller and Bellet. May have been Magtech, but I think it was Seller and Bellet.
I got some stuff from Bulgaria or somewhere a couple of years ago, and it was awesome. It was really good.
Yeah,
it smelled funny, but it was very consistent.
I don't know where it's from. Probably from some Eastern Bloc country somewhere. But
Yeah.
I get a lot of ammo sent in from Global Ordnance. Those folks over there are really great at helping out the channel, and a lot of the 9 that comes in from them is either Sterling or Igman. Now, out of those 2, I prefer the Igman. I'm not gonna lie, but it's pretty decent to be imported ammunition. Pretty decent
Yeah.
range ammo. Let me back up and caveat that.
Right.
Like you probably don't want to shoot a precision match or anything like that with it.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing with powder, at least, and prime. I mean, just ammo that's manufactured overseas. Some of it's double based, some of it's single based, and some of it smells funny, some of it's not.
Some of it's dirty, which has to do with the
really
powder.
dirty.
Yeah.
I haven't run across any corrosive lately, but that doesn't mean anything.
That's usually Berdan primed when you get corrosion usually.
And I haven't seen any of that in years.
Got the only thing I've got that is Berdan primed anymore, and I might have some like old obscure military cartridge stuff. Don't get me wrong, but anything mainstream that I would shoot on any type of a regular basis is I've got. I bought a metric ton, not literally, but of 7.62 by 25 back in the day. 7.62 toke back in the day. That's Berdan. So anytime I run it, I got to break out some Windex and swab the barrel out really good.
So the last Berdan prime stuff I had was I had some 9mm that was Berdan primed, and it was old, man.
Yeah,
like
those cases are fun when you get them in your press.
Yeah, they suck. Actually, the only reason I knew that there was Berdan primed was because I had not really paid attention, and sure enough, I broke a decapping pin.
Decapping pin. Yep.
Yeah.
You'll do it.
I was pretty aggravated about that.
And even if you don't break it, you'll jack one up a lot of times. Bend it.
Yeah,
or flatten it or something.
So I found that the RCBS ones seem to be hardened and they will break, and the Lee ones seem to be hardened, but maybe not as hard, and they will bend. And I much prefer the bending.
They'll bend or they'll flatten, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless you're doing a mountain of shooting, I don't know that it's worth it right now. Or you're shooting precision rifle.
Specialty stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like Privy Partisan.
Yeah, Boulay talking about PPU. I'll tell you one thing about them. I'll tell you about them one thing, because he's talking about the Grand Specific, and I agree. That's about all that my my Grands will eat. But any obscure like PPU is really good about some obscure cartridges, like 7.5 French, for example, and just 6.5 Carcanos and all of that stuff. That's a brand to be looking at if you've got some of those firearms laying around.
Yeah. It's a so I have had mixed luck with PPU, and I say that because I had a buddy of mine who bought a pallet of PPU. What was it?
Modern cartridge.
7. It was a 77 grain or something like that. It was. I'm drawing. It's 77 grain 223 match ammo, PPU match, and it. I want to say at least every box had at least one that would it didn't have powder in it, and it would in a rifle, and it caused him during a match to have to clear the barrel several times, and he was so pissed, so angry. Which, I mean, that's something that would, upset you, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah, PPU. I don't use PPU except for some specialty stuff. Part of the reason, and their specialty stuff. One of the reasons their specialty stuff so cool is it's not loaded with like max crazy pressures and all of that anyway. So that makes sense what you're saying in a way. It tends to be a little bit underpowered. The PPU does, and so I tend to stay away from it with modern cartridges because of that. You can have some issues, but that's weird that it was match. You would think match. To me, when I hear match, I automatically think that the quality control has skyrocketed through the roof.
see, you would think that.
Just because of the match stuff that I personally run, right? You do any type of deviation testing, and the deviation is just almost non-existent, and that's because of quality control. So to have ones that don't even have powder, that's crazy, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it didn't have much, because they would get stuck about halfway down the barrel, and he'd have to hammer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Squibs. Oh, yeah. That can be bad if you're shooting fast and if you don't notice your squib. And
right. Yeah. So he had like, and it was like one per box, and he had a pallet of this stuff, and it was bad. I ended up having to loan him ammo at a match, and I tried some of his. Now I did not have any problems with it. So we don't know what the real deal was, but whatever it is, he was having a lot of trouble at the Privy Partisan match. Now I think they've changed that. Now, see, the thing is, I don't know that Privy Partisan actually made the match ammo, or if they were reboxing somebody else's stuff. And they've since, I think, the current match ammo from them is with a Sierra 77 SMK. But I don't know that, so don't quote me. Anyway, were we able to get Sweet Auntie or Auntie or whatever a link? If not, you can post a link in the chat, but I won't let anybody else up but her for now, or somebody will have to ask. So
yeah. Cody's asking about odds of suppressors becoming legal without the tax. I think we've got pretty good odds of.
I think it's 50-50 right now, which is the best it's ever been.
Yeah, that's what I was excited. But odds are better than it ever has been. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens in November, because that's going to obviously affect the odds, and then over the next 4 or 5 years, the Supreme Court obviously is going to play a big role in that. So, because regardless, even if there is a huge red wave, and you've got red legislature, red president, they're not gonna, they don't undo past legislation. Like, they just don't do that. So the only way to fight the NFA at this point is to go through the courts. But I think there's a lot of headway with Bruin and a lot of the Chevron deference cases and a lot of the other things. I think we're sitting in a pretty good position to dismantle the NFA.
So my ultimate goal is the disbanding of the ATF.
Yeah, all letter agencies pretty much need to go away.
Yeah, they need to go. Yeah, they need to go away.
I don't even. I'm not content with stopping at the ATF.
Me neither.
On a federal level, yeah. Like if it's
FDA,
acronym, like
NFA or ATF, pardon me, IRS, FAA, except for commercial. FAA only needs to be applied to commercial. FCC should only be applied to commercial. And they should be regulatory agencies that simply issue permits, and that's it. Like nothing else. Like
I'm okay when you talk about the FDA. You talk about the ATF. You talk about the EPA. You talk about what's the one for education? Department of Education. I don't even know, but anyway.
Department of Education needs to go. for sure.
So I'm okay. I'm okay with having a. I don't even know how you would word this. I'm not okay with the bloated bureaucracies that all of those have become. What I
Yeah.
would be okay with. Here's my compromise. I know that's a dirty word,
Oh,
but here's
boy.
my compromise on the federal level. I'm okay with having some type of a director
Mhm.
and a damn secretary to answer the phone. That
You
should
mean
be
like
the
a cabinet? You mean a cabinet
almost
member,
like a
not
cabinet
an
member
agency.
for that. Yeah. And then them have an aide or something, I get it, or a secretary or something like cool. But having a bloated agency with thousands of employees and government employees and all that, like, no, I'm not okay with that. And the reason I say I'm okay with like a cabinet member, some type of a director, very, very minor presence, is simply for coordination amongst the states. And that's the only purpose.
Ogoli, I normally try and end at 3, but if we're going well, I'll just extend it out. I will be back on at 8 as well. So, I go a long time today. Yeah, I mean, I see that. So the problem I have is that the Department of Agriculture is much better than at deciding which food is better or worse for human consumption than the FDA is.
No, true. But that's overlapping. That's the stupid overlapping agencies that make no sense.
Right.
Right.
No, we already had the departments in place. They just created these agencies in theory as part of these departments to be their active arms, and that's wrong. We should never have done that.
Yeah,
and
no, I agree. Yeah.
So, that's how that goes. Hello, sweet Aunt T. How are you?
I'm doing good, and you guys?
We're great. We can maneuver the conversation kind of away from the politics and man prattle, if you
I'm
like.
fine with it.
Oh, you are? Okay, great.
Yeah.
So we already the Department of Commerce should be the one collecting taxes, and they're perfectly capable of doing that. And we don't need a federal agency for that anyway. I just feel like that we are actually really overburdened by the number of government agencies and the laws. I think all of the existing statutes. So if I were king or president, if I were president with
dictator,
both houses,
dictator for a day.
Well, it would take longer than a day. But if I was president for a reasonable period of time with both houses and the Supreme Court in my pocket, we would get rid of all 3-letter agencies. That'd be like number one thing, and that'd be like an executive order. Like there can be no more 3-letter agencies.
Well, they're under the executive branch, so it'd be really easy to do.
Yeah, just
don't let
no
any
more
president fool you about
no
that.
more of this, and then all federal laws or statutes would have to be reviewed every 5 years.
Yep.
And the useless ones thrown away.
All legislation.
And members of Congress.
And and term limits. I would do I would feel like there's a way to do an executive order to institute term limits long enough to get term limits voted in.
Yes.
So those things, if we did that, we could literally just push right kind of back to the middle where we need to be instead of being on either edge, right?
Term limits for me is a tricky thing. Because I get that you see all of the old heads that's caused problems for so long, and they're the ones ruffling their feathers. But what you don't see is the ones that's been there just that long, grinding away. And so one is obviously a counter to the other. What worries me about term limits is you've got to fashion that in such a way as far as the time frame where it laps administrations. I think that's a have to. And then I think that there's a problem if we don't wrangle and get a hold of society and bring society itself back more to the center. Get rid of a lot of the division, a lot of putting people in boxes, right? Get rid of a lot of that stuff, a lot of a lot of the degenerate attitude, I guess, as Andrew would put it.
Yeah.
16
we
years
can't
with
do that,
5 years or something.
yeah, if we can't do that, then the new people that we're going to have, new crops of people we're going to be voting in, are going to be degenerates, and there's not going to be, they're going to be just as bad as the old heads we're trying to get out. I mean, look at AOC, for example, and some of those, right? So the new blood, when we need the right kind of blood, not just new blood.
So here's another thing that I, again, if I were king for a day, or if I somehow became president, which wouldn't happen, but here's the thing: we would have to have an age limit. Like if we don't allow people to work past 65, then why are we letting people to legislate past 65? Like, that's dumb.
That. Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah. I don't know that I ever heard anybody say that, but I like that idea.
Yeah, so I want an age limit. Well, that's ageism. It's a ism, so you won't hear it except from idiots like me that don't care. And the other thing is that I believe that so the way that I would do term limits is very simple. You can only serve one term in any government position. So you can be a senator for a term, you can be a House of Representatives member for one term, and you could, I suppose, be a state representative of some kind for one term, or an cabinet member for one term. But you couldn't be there. We couldn't have no more professional politicians. And I believe that you cannot run for office unless you are, or you can prove that you've been a leader in some fashion, either through military service, you own a business, or you are, an executive in some form of corporation or something like that. Because if you haven't shown leadership, why are we voting for you?
Yeah,
this is stupid.
I don't know.
I'm doing a poor job of quantifying it, but back when this country was building itself, and we were sending people to the moon and all of that, literally every single president came from the military or was an entrepreneur and obviously I consider farmers to be entrepreneurs.
I get what you're saying, but you're using a word that I hate people using when they say leader. Okay. The Yahoos in our state capitals and in DC are representatives, not our leaders. So therefore, if there are representatives, they don't need leadership skills. What they need to be doing is listening to and fulfilling the will of the people they represent. And there's so many politicians that do not do that. Most politicians don't do that. They cater to the lobbies. They cater to corporations. They cater to all these other things. They're not listening to the people.
Yeah. Again, the reason for that a lot of that would end with term limits. But let me rephrase. You need to have accomplished, or it's not really it either. What's the word I'm looking for? I mean, I give me a minute. I'll come back to it. Leadership.
You need somebody of decent moral character. That's for sure, right?
Yeah, but I mean, people have different versions of what that looks like.
Well, and that's why you got to get. Once upon a time, there wasn't that many versions. There was one. I mean, our founders, there weren't near as many versions of, good moral character as there are nowadays. Back then.
Credibility, sense of accomplishment, something like that all kind of plays into it. I don't know why my camera is being so weird today. It keeps lighting me on. None of my lights are changing, by the way. It's just this thing's doing it. At least I don't think they are. It's just when I move, the camera's fucking up. Anyway, sorry.
Well, and another thing too that we got to look at when that comes into term limits and bringing new people in and that sort of thing is campaign finance and how campaigns are run and that sort of thing. The cost of running for a public office, even at a county level, is absolutely phenomenally freaking insane.
Sure.
And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Literally anybody that meets the criteria, set forth in the founding documents should be able. Money should not be an issue.
So that's an interesting thing, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I don't know how to solve it. I've heard a couple of different propositions, and that would be that the RNC and DNC and any other political party or PAC could only support the candidates up to a given amount, and the candidates could not use their own personal money, nor could they use money from anyone else. And so you couldn't have these super PACs running around spending tons and tons of money on an election. And so that would limit the amount of money that could even be spent on it, right? Like, so plus it's audited, right? So the thing is you can't audit a lot of these things, right? You can't Angel, do you want to come up, buddy? You should come up. He's very smart. But you can't. It's so hard when you allow PACs and super PACs, and then you allow the president to spend his own money, and then the candidate spend his own money, and then you don't know what is his money and what he's been given or whatever. It's a very interesting thing, right? To me. So the only thing that I can come up with is that you either have to cap it, and all the campaign funds have to come from one source that can be audited and is regulated, right?
Could you use like the Department of Elections or something? Is there something that could be done in that area?
I think so. I think what you would do is that you would have the RNC, DNC, and maybe any other political party. If you wanted to run a candidate, let's just say at any level, you had to go to your state office, and you would have to give them the maximum amount of money, right? Which would be, I don't know, say for a local election, $200,000, so they can't buy 20 hours of TV time and just inundate everybody, or whatever. I don't know what the money would be, but whatever that cost is, right? For local election, for like a councilman, it's $100,000. For mayor, it's $200,000. For governor, it's $500,000 or $1 million. For president, it's $2 million, $3 million. And then, of course, you have to then, you can't do anything about the press, but you could do what you could do within reason, right? As far as,
well, I think that would also lend itself to a lot more grassroots campaigning and activism.
It would.
And I think that grassroots campaigning and activism, it's one thing for just a political ad to come on the TV all the time in the background, or there to be, a billboard as you're driving down the highway, which is what, let's not kid ourselves, which is what the vast majority of campaign financing and stuff is spent on, right? On top of trips for debates or, rallies or whatever. But the grassroots, literally your neighbor knocking on your door and having a conversation with you about some candidate and directly addressing the concerns you have with that candidate and this, that, and the other, that serves a couple of purposes. First of all, it's a lot more credible because it's coming from an actual human being that's talking to you, not a sign or a campaign ad on TV. So that's number one. And then number two, there's also another byproduct of this that really doesn't have anything to do with elections, but it gets more people out in the communities talking to each other and everything else, which is like it should be, which I think is one of the things that's died off that has led us down the road that we're traveling right now, is our interactions with other people. And we say that as we're live through cameras and whatnot on the internet, sure. But I just spent 4 days at an event with, 1,000 people. So it's not like I don't get out in the world, but there's a lot of people that don't. And having those interactions, I think, would vastly change multiple dynamics in this country for the better.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I agree with all that. I think that I think it would allow for a lot more grassroots movement, a lot of motivation. So if we did all of that, and I mean, there's other stuff too, like, welcome, Angel. How are you?
Doing well, Grid. Appreciate you having me back on. Dealing with the heat wave out here, making it a little hard to work out and go out to the woods when it's really, really hot out here.
Yeah, I bet. So the other thing I think that's really important at least in the presidential race, is that the campaign can only, there has to be a set start and end date of the campaign, right? Like you can't start campaigning halfway through your term.
Yeah, correct.
Which is what basically every, a lot of presidents have been doing. And I think that's a problem. And the president, especially, we have to have at least some controls in place for all of the expenses, all of the what they pay, what they buy in stocks, while they're in office, what they're going out and if they're going out and doing $100,000 dinners or something like that, $100,000 plate dinners, some things like that. All of that has to be reformed. And we're just at a point now where it's just so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. And the elections themselves need to be reformed. So it's one day in person only, unless you have personally filed with the state, with your city office, that you're out of town or out of the country or whatever, and you get that remote ballot sent to you from your like I did. Like when I voted for Trump the first time, 2016, I was out in California at the time. So when I was before I knew I was going to be out there during that period of time, and I was going to not be able to vote in person. So I went down to the office and I said, "Hey, I'm going to be out of town. What can I do?" And they're like, "Well, fill out this form." I had to give them my driver's license. Here you go. I'm a resident in Tennessee. Yep. Okay. And they sent me my form, my ballot out, and it was an official ballot. So these things are important, because if you can corrupt that system at any point, you will win, or at least you can prevent the other guy from winning. So I think that all of this is really important stuff.
I like your point about military service as well. For anyone that's going to be the commander-in-chief should have served the military he is commanding. I think that would help with conscription issues.
Too.
We would have a lot more conscription.
I really think so.
And that's where it's tough, because I agree with Clover that your representation is supposed to be representative of your populace and what your populace's culture is at the time. But at the same time, I agree with Grid too, because of the powers you're going to be bestowed upon when you're given that power. You should have some kind of connection to that power in some way in your civilian life before you got to that point. Right. And so I think there needs to be a balance between the two. So I agree with Clover that we need to instill that patriotic culture we used to have, so that way people are willing to serve in civic positions as a civilian, that give them a taste of what they're going to have to do before they get there. And then we put those people up. Because I agree with you, Grid, you do need to have that taste, that experience. But at the same time, we're not putting them there to be our overlords. We're putting them to represent us. So it's a combination of the two.
So here's the thing, though. Prior to Reagan, prior to Reagan and up into Reagan, all of the presidents had pretty much been elected based on merit, and they had and what they had accomplished in life, not because they were a politician, right? Like Eisenhower, general, right? Ford, arguably Nixon. He didn't serve, but he was not a career politician. He was a business guy, and he had accomplished something, right? Like I hate to use the word built something, but he understood high level, things other than just shaking people's hands. Johnson, I think Johnson served. I could be wrong about that. But up until that point, they basically had all served. Kennedy served. All of these guys, they all served in the military, or they worked, Roosevelt didn't serve in the military, but he was from a very prominent, well-educated family and had led in his family business, right? So while I use the term leadership, what I really mean is accomplishment. They understand how to work to accomplish things and get, lead people to accomplish goals and to meet deadlines and to stay within a budget and to plan appropriately. And what we've got instead of any of that is we've got a bunch of people who are taught how to talk really well, because that's what they're taught in political science. They're not taught how to accomplish things. They're not taught how to build things. They're not taught how to lead people. They're literally taught how to get elected, and that's it.
Oh, and just so you know, Lyndon Johnson, John F. Kennedy, and Robert Nixon, they all served in the military too. I was thinking to myself, I remember they served in World War II. They all served in World War II. Yeah, LBJ served and Nixon. So I was like, I'm pretty sure they all served. And I think it was.
I couldn't remember if Nixon had, and I was really unclear if Johnson had, but I knew Kennedy had.
That's why you thought he did, because he did. Your brain was telling you to go with your gut on that one. And
but my brain overrules my gut sometimes. It's like, you've read this before, and I'm like, am I just trying to placate my mental state here? But yeah, so. But up until that point, everybody had been some form of a accomplished leader. Reagan was the first guy or the last guy who had accomplished, come from nothing, not been a politician, that sort of, not a professional politician. And, he was the last guy. After that, we get into Carter, who I don't remember if Carter served, but
he did.
Really matter.
He did. He served in World War II too. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's crazy. I tell you, even the guys you think were squishy and soft, I'm telling you, that was the culture. This is what Clovertech was saying. This is why I said even along the left and the right used to agree on core fundamentals, and even the ones like
a country, we have back to core fundamentals, and that's what I'm really talking about here. Is that by redefining, by getting rid of the professional politicians, right? This is the biggest problem we have in society, honestly. We can talk about how woke this and, conservative that and liberal this and rightist that. We can talk about all those talking points all day, all we want to. But the reality is that our core principles are compromised, because we only have professional politicians in office for the most part. Even here in my local, town council, they're mostly, now they are businessmen, but they are very, in my opinion, my local city council is corrupt. They are constantly approving building on places that normally would not be approved to build on, because I think they all are either realtors or own construction companies, and they should all be fired. I've been trying to vote them out now for a couple of cycles, and we got one out, but the others are dug in like ticks, man. And and it's city council, so nobody really pays that much attention to it. So, and they should.
Maybe we should do more voter advocacy and education as well, alongside.
I'm sorry, Sweet Tea. If you can speak a little closer to your mic or something, I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I said, what about more voter advocacy and education as well? Getting your local community together, having people who are in that community, like you're the city council, like doing more adverts for that community to be more involved.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think, actually, before I say what I think, Clovertac, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I've said it earlier, or I said it out there in the chat, I think, or did I? I don't know. But I mean, I don't know. It's a reflection on society, and no, I mean, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. It's really weird because prior to you know, I don't know, up until like the early 90s. I mean, Texas was a pretty solid Democrat stronghold, but it was still Texas. You know, I look back and has much really changed from the 80s, you know, 70s, 60s Democrat stronghold till today? And not really. Texas is still Texas for the most part, right? There are some 2A stuff. There are, you know, there obviously there's dribs and drabs of little things that are better. You know, the military service thing. Again, I go back to it's society, man. Regardless of whether we're talking about, we've had we've had the conversation about law enforcement, about cops, about the popo on this
that's
before.
true.
And I say it all the time. They are a reflection. The cops we're getting into these positions are a reflection of frickin' society. Politicians are a reflection of frickin' society.
I agree.
It all comes back to we've got to clean our own house, which is society.
Yes.
Until we do that, nothing can trickle up. If garbage in, garbage out, right? Like,
so I agree with that. I do agree with it. I do agree with that.
And that's a tough thing because, like, how do you solve that? How do you fix that? Right? It's easy to sit here and go, oh, well, we need term limits and we need to do this and we need to campaign finance, all the things we've been talking about, right? Worthy conversations, interesting conversations, and it's nice to have a game plan for when you get to that point. But the problem is, the really big hurdle we got to jump is the societal issues before we can ever even get into it.
And I agree with you, Clover. I always spew this all the time about the culture, but you got to understand. Look at us, just the three of us here, right? How much do you participate in pop culture? I don't honestly. Grid, Clover, pop culture, yes.
Very, very little. Like all the trendy stuff and whatever, like very little, probably.
Not much, right?
Look, a little bit. I mean,
that's culture. That's the culture, and the right didn't participate in pop culture for an entire century, and we lost it because of that. We on the right have always taken the stance. We've taken the Matt Walsh stance on things. Anime is bad. Cartoons are bad. That's the Matt Walsh stance, and this is why he gets. A lot of people like him on the right, but he gets criticized because he's taking the stance that lost us the culture last century. And at the end of the day, you have to accept, on the right, we have to accept that pop culture is what influences the youth going into their older years. You know, and if we don't participate in those things, you can't expect to change the culture or build influence in a culture.
So I agree with you.
So let's take it to how the normal person would participate in such things. Elaborate a little.
Stay in touch with your children. That's number one. Because your children, and when they move away halfway across the country, right? Well, how are you staying in touch with the culture when they're having your grandkids, and then the grandkids are the new connection to the current culture of the time?
Well, that gets into that would get into an even more root level fundamental dynamic of family and parenting.
Absolutely. And that's where everything takes place. All change takes place at the grassroots level, which is at your local level. And the most local level begins in your own household.
Correct.
Because all the individual households, everything pours out of those individual households into the public. That's how this works.
Yeah.
And it's how it will continue to work. It's just right now on the right, it's not in our favor. But at one point, the right and the left used to agree on core fundamental values as a country that we could get behind despite our differences socially.
Well, I'll get into that in a second. Sweet Tia, how do you think about this?
I agree. Socially, we are in a really bad place. We do, as a country, need to get back to those core values. And you're right, it's through youth. That's why I hate professional politicians as well, is I think that they've created this division. I think other countries have also helped with this division. I think we as a people have been divided not on accident. And the nuclear family's been attacked if we're going to go that route. And we as a people need to somehow figure out how to change the minds of the youth that's coming next to understand that the nuclear family wasn't wrong, that these new ideals being pushed are pushing you away from core values that make you a good person.
Okay. Let me, just because I know Angel and I know Clover, I know about them pretty well. I don't really know you. Can you give me just a quick intro? Also to the chat as well, who don't know you. Could you give I should have done that before, but I was remiss in my duties.
How dare you? Yeah, I can do a little synopsis.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, terribly. Yeah.
This is my second panel. My first one was with you earlier. I've never been on a panel before. I listen to them a lot, and I just feel like the woman's voice is getting diluted and strayed to such a, like, men and women are at this point where they hate each other. And as a woman who doesn't hate men, I want my voice to be a part of the conversation. But as far as I go, I actually am like, I watch a lot of you. I know you like the Whatever podcast. I watch that one all the time. And one of the things that really perturbs me and is because I grew up with a background similar to some of those OnlyFans models. But it never made me turn to those. Like, I've always needed to grind for myself and be financially independent myself. I work now, I have no college education. I did not have assistance with that, but I've worked my way through different career choices with corporate training, consulting. I've moved into the trucking industry. I was doing some training on lower end vehicles, and I work in like logistics operations. And I'm actually in the middle of getting sent to get my paid to get my Class A CDL so that I can have a better understanding. And I want to get more into the trucking industry logistics.
Okay.
And I'm married for 10 plus years to a wonderful husband who's the man of my home. But we do have an egalitarian type style financially and responsibility. Now, as far as who has the final say, it's him. If he put his foot down, that's the end of the story. If I have friends that he doesn't like and he were to tell me that, I would trust his judgment, that he knows people better than I do, because I haven't made very good judgment on people through my life, and he's much more rational than I am. And as a woman, I know I'm delulu sometimes. So I bring him more imagination and he brings me a lot more realism. And we go really well together. Been a little over 10 years together. No kids, but we love his side very much. And I do not force him to see my side.
Okay.
That's a testament to the male-female complement theory or whatever right there, which I think is super valid.
Yeah.
So many people out there, so many people out there hunting for their soulmate, and they think their soulmate is somebody that, acts, loves everything just like them. And it's like, no, it takes you gotta have somebody that completes you, not to get all Jerry Maguire here, but
yeah,
that's what it requires.
So
it does. It makes you want to be better and not complacent. So you don't want someone that makes you just feel like I'm fine now. You want someone that makes you think every day, like, I want to please that person better. I want to be a better person. Like, we've been together 10 plus years and neither of us have physically declined. Actually, we look better than we did when we first met. Things like that. So someone that makes you want to be better too is a key component. If you're with someone and you feel like complacency is comfortable and that's where you want it to be, then you're not with the right person.
I like all of that. So now that I had to digress there a little bit, because I again, I didn't know a lot about you. I'm sure the chat was wondering as well. So I'm gonna dive into this now that I've heard from you three. I do agree that culturally we have to take back America, I guess. And it does begin with the kids, but it also to some degree the adults as well. I think that we have a pretty severe disconnect between what people think they want and what the politicians are going to do when they get elected. And this is something that's really interesting to me because, number one, I can't understand how an 18-year-old female believes that a 64-year-old dude that has never before cared anything about anything except for votes, all of a sudden cares about the things she cares about at all. I've never understood that. I don't understand how that all kind of works out in their heads. And as far as the culture, you know, the anime thing, the computer, the mass amount of computer and other social media that we absorb daily, even me being on this YouTube channel doing this, I think all of that, conservatives were conservative and liberals took to it and just, you know, like ducks to water, I think. And even if they didn't, at the same, even though they were, you could argue, I think successfully, that initially the leftists were just as plagued as people on the right with technology. The leftists largely invest in the technology and create the technology, and therefore they control the technology. And that's what we see with like the things you can and cannot say on YouTube, the things you can and cannot say on any other social platform. Not because it's wrong or it's you know, super offensive, but just because they don't like it. And that has bled into everything. But the real crime, the real criminal element here is that we've developed a society of tone policing and a lot of other things that are directly out of Saul Alinsky's book. And the leftists have co-opted the Democratic Party. What you guys are talking about when you say, well, the Republicans and Democrats used to at least agree on a lot of things, most things, to be honest. And then they didn't. Well, what happened? Well, I'll tell you what happened. The leftists infiltrated the Democratic Party enough to start using communist prescriptors and descriptors for standard liberal viewpoints. And that's like ice expanding in rock, right? Eventually it's going to break the rock. They let the water get down in there, and then it froze, right? The leftists infiltrated. They assigned all of these prescriptors, descriptors to liberal tendencies. And then when the water froze, it shattered the Democratic Party. My mom, who's been a lifelong Democrat, her entire existence, she's never even thought about being anything else, does not recognize the Democratic Party of today. When she reads about all of these things in the paper, she believes that they're Republicans doing it. And when I say, no, Mom, that's the Democrat. That's Nancy Pelosi. That's the woman you thought should be president at one point. No, she's the one that's doing the insider stock trading, not a Republican, although they do. I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying that it was particularly heinous in Pelosi's case. And so all I can do about it is what I'm doing right now, and that is try and put on a good show, try and grow it as much as I can. I'm leaning into the political side of it, and I've been very open about my strategy is to grow my channel enough to be able to work with PACs and super PACs in the future to spread the conservative message, and obviously get paid for my time. Not going to bullshit about that even a little bit. But that's only one portion of why I'm doing this. Mostly I like to have fun, but at some point I have to get paid for my effort. Even though I'm retired, I have a belief system in place. Have to. I really like what Angel was saying. I just think that you didn't go far enough. We have to admit that communists have infiltrated and to a large degree corrupted the existing Democratic Party in this country, and it is now mostly communist. I think we have to admit that. If we can't admit that, then I don't know what else is going on.
Yeah, and they've normalized communist political belief and structure in society now. They spent the last 4 decades doing that. So this is why it's ironic that I know that today conservatives will try to say distance ourselves from the McCarthy era because we don't want to be seen as people who are hypocritical about free speech. And but ultimately that was the final thing that we had in place of power. That was our last stand in terms of the right holding power in our political structure in this country.
Yeah. I mean, if we're honest about it, right? McCarthy wasn't wrong in anything that he did. It's just people don't like it now because it's mean, right?
Yep.
He was right, though they were communist, right? Now,
especially in Hollywood, he was pulling them out of Hollywood.
Yeah, and now some of them were not communist, and he apologized, said, "Yep, you're good, but these guys over here and those guys over there are communist," and I caught them. And the problem is that those actions now are looked at as being judgmental. They're wrong. How dare you accuse someone of being communist? We are all friends here. I'm not friends with communists at all. We're not cool at all. It flies in the face of my society. And communism does not belong in this society. Socialism in any form does not belong in this society. So we have to get rid of it. Now, we've all read, I'm sure, we're all learned individuals here. We've all read how that pretty much any society will eventually become socialist because of the ability of the high earners or wealthy, or however you want to put it, to take care of the needy grows and grows and grows until the needy start to not be the needy anymore. The needy is actually, workers that just don't want to work because they know they can get something for free. And it just eventually becomes socialism, which morphs into communism. That argument can be made, and I think it's a valid argument, but I would say that you can just as easily return to core beliefs and potential without having to go to war. The question is if we can do it. And the question in my mind is if we can do it without going to war. And some would argue that we are currently at war. I think they're wrong, but whatever. So that was
like actual armed conflict. Yeah, I think we can. Yeah, I think we can. I think I don't think that's been lost. We seem so far removed from like 9/11 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But, prior to that, what was a major event where, everybody came together, right? So we have these long spans where, something horrific happens and, folks come together, and for a little while, for a minute, we get it. So that American spirit, I think, is in the vast majority of people. I just think that there's mechanisms that, that 9/11 was pre-social media, right? So there's this mechanism of social media that has created. It hasn't created the disconnect. Let me back up. There's many other things that actually have created it's exacerbated the disconnect. And so I'm not real sure how we get around that. And I think it's by utilizing, and this may speak to Angel's point of pop culture and being able to utilize said pop culture. But maybe we need to do a better job at, and I've fought this battle for a long time, or at least tried. But maybe we need to use social media in a much more positive way. But as I say that, I'm sitting here thinking about whether it's TikTok or Facebook or X or YouTube or whatever, thinking about, the channels, the creators, the topics, the things that get the most traction, right? Are the train wrecks, are the horrific events and war and other things is what gets the most traction. It's not positive things, unfortunately. And even to an extent, when we enter into these conversations, and this is not a dig at you, Grid, or anything else, but even when we have panel chats and we get into politics and we get into the state of the country, we tend to be viewing the negatives and not looking at things from a positive perspective, and what little bit of light is left, and how do we amplify that light, and how do we reach other people to make them realize that life is worth living, and we live in the greatest country on the planet. Whether there's people out there that says it's not, there is irrelevant. We do. If you don't believe that, go take a trip. And don't take a trip as a billionaire or a millionaire. Hop on a cargo plane and get pushed out of it in the middle of the sub-Sahara, Africa or something, with no money in your pocket or nothing to defend yourself with, and see how warlords and everything else, and see how horrible a lot of parts of the world are, right? What everybody sees through social media, what do they see? They see these other countries, right? And they see the good in these other countries. That's what primarily gets put, is the fancy places, the upscale, the whatever. And it's the same way with social media. Nobody's showing what's going on in Southside Chicago, right? Nobody's showing the youth that are, unfortunately being taken way too early and not even given a chance in life because they're corrupted by gangs in LA or New York or Miami or wherever it might be, Houston, right?
So I have a little bit different take on this, and I'm trying to fix that, but I tend not to focus. I don't feel like I focus on the negative too much, but I do. I mean, at some point you have to bring it up.
We get sucked in. It's a human element. That's why I say it's not a dig on you. It's a human element, and we get sucked into it.
I try not to focus on it. I try and look for the way forward. But here's the thing. I tell you where we're really losing this, guys, is that if I were Destiny, right? If I was on Destiny's channel or one of Destiny's orbiters, literally, if I said anything near intelligent, every single person would share, tell all their friends about it. There would be an Instagram tree. And that's what happens. And that's how the left is so much more efficient than the right at getting these getting this grassroots and this movement in place. And this is the best example of this is Farha and Jasmine Jafar admitting to taking money from PACs secretly, not openly, secretly taking money from PACs to completely politicize their message. And these were two people that, basically unknown, except, Jasmine eventually became the OF stripper attorney girl with the big fake boobs. And Farha is supposedly smart, but she's not. She's a Destiny orbiter. The only reason they have the sheer number of followers that they have, beyond the fact that they're female, is that literally everybody in DGG will subscribe, email that shit to their friends, post it on all of their, so literally just everything. You can't get away from it if you're in that. You can't get away from it, period, because even if you're just kind of in their circle, you will get bombarded by this all of this stuff 24/7. We all are. Even me, who have I never even go to these places, and I get stuff from leftist organizations, right? The right sucks at it. We suck at it. I catch myself doing it all the time. I'll watch a video, I'll watch a Matt Walsh video, and I won't like or subscribe or share it or anything or I won't even talk about it.
Well, it's there's a reason. so they have cookies. And what I mean by that,
Right? Yeah, real. No, you're right.
The left is all about free love and do what you want if it feels good. We have to go to work. We have to be responsible. We have to pay our bills. We have to, you know what I mean? Like, how do you make that cool? I don't know.
Yeah, we don't. There's Devon Anderson who was talking about the. I believe he was talking about the SIG P320 last night. Maybe we'll get into that shortly. It looks like we lost Sweet Tea, Sweet Aunt Tea, whatever,
or something maybe.
Yeah, she may have lost her signal or something. She may have had to go. Who knows? It's okay. So it's all fine. But you're right. They have cookies and we have steak, I guess.
More like we have broccoli, but yeah,
we have reality. You know, they're serving hopes and dreams, and we're serving reality. And nobody, you know. But again, it's even people that agree with you. And I've actually really tried to get a lot better about this. If I like Glenn Lawrence's shows when he comes on. You know, I like Andrew's stuff when he comes on, because I now understand that this is how they're able to reach so many people. I'm actually going to start posting links in my Facebook, even though, you know, nobody goes to Facebook anymore. Just because we lose the battle because we see something, we go, yeah, man, that's cool. And then that's it. And maybe we tell somebody about it in person, you know, say, oh, you know what? I saw this great clover tack thing the other day, man. It was awesome. Well, do you have a link? No, I don't have a link. You know, it's a very interesting thing. And this as well, Crow Nick is right. We are actually suppressed and censored for our views. But you got it. I mean, we're just not. Conservatives are by definition conservative. We don't go out of our way to sound our own horn, where leftists, right, that's all they do.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. When we do, we often get, or I know this has happened with me. We often get, oh, you're just being braggadocious and you're bragging to put other people down.
Yes.
Or what? So I don't talk about my life situations, and I don't talk about the good things in my life and the things I've accomplished to brag. And anybody that has spent any time with me has heard me say this before. I don't tell my stories to say I'm better than you. I tell my stories to say I'm no different than you. And if I can do this, you can do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And not just that, I want to see you do this, right? Like I want to see you do it better than me, right? If I tell you that, oh, I made, you know, $400,000 on YouTube last year. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that to say if I can, little old redneck goofy me could do that, and I didn't make that much. This was just an example. I hope that you come up and do it, and you make $800,000 next year. Like that's what I want you to do. I want you to take that as an inspiration that it can be done, and I'm going to do it better.
I would just be happy if everybody that sees a conservative or solid, and right-leaning libertarian voice, if they just posted it somewhere other than just liking it and whatever on YouTube, but posted it or talked about it with their friends or whatever, because you can't imagine the mileage they're getting out of it. Angel, you wanted to say something, and I kind of stepped in there. I'm sorry, but.
Yeah, I was going to say that if you like, I don't have much social media, but the social media I do have I get bombarded by links from a lot of my left-leaning friends or allies out there constantly. And out of my conservative friends, I see nothing. Nothing. Right. They don't share anything of political influence or cultural influence whatsoever, but yet my left-leaning friends will constantly share everything regarding what's happening in politics, social issues, local stuff all the time.
I'm saying, man, it's crazy. Go over to just sniff around Destiny's server. He's got thousands thousands of people on that server at any given time. And if he shares one thing, it will be everywhere before the end of the day. Matt Walsh can share something and it takes 2 days to get the same reach because we just don't do it. I mean, you're right. You're 100% right. My conservative friends are the same way.
There is a reason. Okay. And I'm not saying this is an excuse, saying it's a reason. The reason is, again, we're worried about, we got to pay the bills. We got to do the yard work. We got to be responsible. We got to do this. We got to do that. You know what? We're not in the mindset of, ooh, share this, stay on social media all day, share this. That's not where we're at. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. I mean, it's bad. I'm not using that as an excuse, but that's the reason that you see what you see with the left side shares all the time and the right side doesn't. We've got other things going on and that take priority.
I agree with you 100%.
Me and my son have this conversation a lot because he called me just a couple of nights ago and we were just talking about this very thing. And he asked me, like, do you think that we're going to push for a major change on the right if something happens to Trump? I said, no, we don't have the political will. And the problem is, and this is something I've criticized my own friends and his friends about. I said, honestly, look among your own friend group, all your married friends, families. What is their number? There are two reasons you hear constantly from them as to why they don't participate or voice or do anything when it comes to politics and culture. And I hate to say it, it's my money or my business, my kids. Those are the two things that constantly come out of conservatives' mouths as to why they flee from the culture. My business, my kids. And I hate to say it, that is becoming a trope and a cop-out now. Because when conservatives say that, you act as though the left doesn't have jobs. Like none of the left works, none of the left have families, they're all just homeless. No. A lot of the left work just like you do, make money, and they do have kids. They have less kids, but they still have families. That's a cop-out. We on the right have overwhelmingly fled to outside suburbia and the rural areas for a long time. We haven't stayed in the urban centers where power is consolidated. We fled from it. That's just a fact.
Yeah, I mean that's
cowardice. I'm sorry, but I will tell this to anybody on our side, and I will do it to your face. You are a coward when you say that, because then you're saying that the left doesn't have that when they have that too, but they have the courage to sacrifice certain things that we don't. That's just the reality. That's why I agree with Clover Tech, and he's correct, and I also will criticize that to the ends of the earth, because that's what's got us here. We fled from battle.
Well, that's why I said it's not an excuse; it's a reason, because it's reality.
Yeah. But it's a piss poor reality that must be changed. We have to.
So Dan's right here. Conservatives share things less out of a subconscious fear of losing friends and family over it. Certainly, I've lost people who were claimed to be my friend because I would say conservative things and they would get very bent about it, which I don't understand. That look, we can have different political opinions. We can still be friends.
So when I share stuff,
unless you're a communist,
when I share stuff, when I share my opinions, when I share my life, what I'm doing, so does it piss people off, and do I potentially lose people because of that? Yes, but I'll tell you this. The people that I gain that have common goals and interests and worldviews that become, Grid can testify to this, I think, that become good friends, far outweigh the stupid fucking people that walked. Screw them.
Yeah, that's a good argument too. Big Jake's ranch. I'm too busy cutting game, hunting trails on my acreage to sit and spurg about politics on social media. That's why I do it, brother. So you can go do that. I don't feel like I'm spurging though. I feel like I'm just having a good conversation. If I do spurg, please let me know.
Well, to be fair, I decided to take a break for a few hours here, but I got to get back to similar chores.
Yeah, go do your chores, man. Go do your chores.
No. I'm just saying, I'm not right this minute, but I'm just saying, I get what Big Jake's saying there. I understand.
Yeah. I'm playing hooky over here. So,
and I understand that too.
I've been
I
away
get
for like
that.
a
I
week,
really get it.
so let me indulge.
I,
Jake. Let
I,
me indulge.
I really get that. I understand that. I grew up. I had a hybrid lifestyle. I was raised on a ranch and raised in a city, and I as much as I understand that, fleeing and saying, well, I'm out here in my ranch doing this, hunting and all this stuff, so that stuff doesn't matter to me. That is the same argument that people make when they say, I don't vote because it won't matter. That's what I get from that. Because just because you have things to do doesn't mean that you should just not participate anymore. Everyone has that, some more than others. But at the end of the day, if you believe that just fleeing from society and it will not catch up to you, it will. You know, Pericles said it best. You may not care about politics, but politics care about you. And it doesn't matter how far you flee, how far you go into the mountains, it will eventually find you. It's just what it is.
Yeah. I think that, again, and I kind of, we started down this road. I was actually trying to make the point that when we were talking about how things need to be changed, the number one change I can see that we as conservatives can make, and it's an easy change, is just back other conservatives. And again, and we've talked about this before on this channel. I don't know how many people have heard it, but just because I disagree with someone over 7% of their platform, right? But we agree on 93%, right? Like we're together on guns, we're together on finances, but we're maybe a little bit off on social, whatever. I'm still going to probably back that person, at least as far as it doesn't interfere with the candidate that I want to win, right? Like I'm not going to throw the guy under the bus. And if he's in a race that doesn't matter to me, then I'm going to back him, because why would I not? Right? Like even now with Tulsi Gabbard, she's at one point in time was the enemy, like the enemy. And now I'm like, you know what? I could see her as VP running mate, right? Think about where we are now. The conservatives are so not conservative that we had to elect a moderate as the most conservative individual we could get.
A moderate Democrat. A moderate Democrat. He's a 90s, Trump is a 90s Democrat.
He is. Absolutely. Yeah, is absolutely. And so when you are doing, when we're thinking about all of this and we're talking about all of this stuff and we talk around all of it, we really have to understand that it is us, you, me, Clover, Sweet Tea, all the people in the chat. If we don't go to our friends and our neighbors and even the people at the counter at the store and say, and if they ask, say, yeah, you know what, I am voting for Trump because I think he's the best choice. You don't have to get into it with them. If they want to argue about it, just whatever. You don't have to argue with people, but you will be surprised at how many people, and I do it all the time actually, where I'll be wearing a semi-political shirt or something like that. And they'll be like, oh yeah, man, I really agree with that. And I'm like, yeah, cool, man. I appreciate that. You should, here, like this or go to this social media or whatever. And let them know, because it's important. It's very important. Vincent, I'm sorry, buddy. We're going to disagree on that. Vivek is definitely not the best choice for VP. And I just don't think it would springboard him into the 28 run that I think he wants to make.
He wouldn't. I don't think he would accept it anyway.
Yeah, it's just not the right. A cabinet position is what he needs. He needs to be He needs to be like Homeland something secretary, agriculture. I don't know.
Maybe technology. Like commerce or something.
Commerce, maybe. Yeah, commerce. I think he'd take that. But he needs a cabinet position where he can stay relevant. But as VP, he doesn't need to be tied that. He doesn't need to be tied that closely to Trump. That's a bad move, I think. Sweet Tea, you've been awfully quiet. Welcome back, by the way.
Yeah, internet connection issues. Yeah. Well, I'll be honest. I'm not super like I've gotten into politics more since 2020. Hindsight, made a lot of discoveries between then and now about who I am. I was a lot more liberal. I was raised conservative and in a conservative household. Well, I was raised in a liberal household, but I had conservative grandparents around me that were more stability and the focus. And then I became liberal later on. And then 2020 snapped me back into conservatism like it was nothing. So
what's your opinion on what we've been talking about how conservatives lose ground because we will not talk to each other or share information amongst each other or even share it with just our circle of friends?
Right.
What do you think about that?
We need to be more vocal. Everyone needs to be more vocal. And getting that out to others is the only way that they're, and the thing about being vocal is you don't have to go berate someone or yell down their face. I think that's what's really torn us all, is that we want to just be the best, even though we're all on the same team. So I think that, being more vocal in your local areas, and also even making attempts to talk to liberal people in a calm manner and try to have decent conversations. You're not always going to find that, but I think not just talking to our own people, but just communicating with everyone we meet. I'm from the Midwest, so when we stand in line, we talk to whoever is around us. And, you don't have to start talking about politics, but you can start talking about how, having more nuclear family and how people need to get back to that, and start spreading those like core values at least as far and wide as we can.
So that's very interesting. I like it a lot. What so you're Midwest, like Nebraska, Kansas?
I'm straight midline on the middle, and I'm close to Canada.
Close to Canada, like Wisconsin. What else is up there?
Minnesota, North Dakota.
Minnesota, North. Okay, yeah. I got a buddy of mine in North Dakota. He's super cool.
North Dakota is a really good state. That's where I'm at. I'm in the smack dab center of the country, just closer to Canada the most. Okay. If you didn't hear it, I don't know if you could tell.
A little bit, but I have a friend of mine who lives in North Dakota. He makes the world's best hunting clothing, King of the Mountain. So, but anyway, very stupidly expensive, stupidly.
Never
mind. What do you think about from a woman's point of view? What do you think about the upcoming election?
We got two turds in a bowl and a lot of policies that aren't going to help either side. I think that, you hit the nail on the head that we used to have candidates that had real values, and now it's just to tear the other person apart. And so I just haven't been able to get behind politicians I do local government more. I guess my local area has the laws I like. I know that's not great, and I've been trying to get more involved, but we got to do it not divisively. I just don't like that there's so much, we have campaign videos that flash, and I rarely ever hear a single point that someone could get behind. Instead, I hear trash talking of the opponent or even members of your own team. Instead, we should be looking at candidates and trying to get all of us to elect candidates that have beliefs that are ours. This coming election, I'm going to vote conservatively. I want us to get back to that as a country. I think we've outsourced and outsized and just screwed ourselves. And I think on the conservative side, we can start getting to that, building it back a little bit better. We were never amazing, but we are now in the pocket of everyone but ourselves.
Okay. So are you so is Kristi Noem your governor?
No, that's South Dakota.
South Dakota. That's why I was wondering. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, she's South Dakota. South Dakota,
Mhm.
North Dakota. You can just call us the Dakotas. We
Yeah.
are basically the same thing, same temperature. They have more hills than us, but yeah, barely. But
That's funny.
so yeah, the politicians are very similarly aligned. Burgum
Okay.
is North Dakota, Governor Burgum, and
Mm-hmm. Okay.
he has been a Class A champ. He's conservative, but he's a real family guy. He goes and talks to the people. He comes out and about. So, we definitely locally are well set. I think, we do have a very liberal Fargo, but and we are on the border of Moorhead there, so those twin like cities kind of influence each other a little bit. But
Sure.
I don't see any budging on the populace as far as giving control away as much as the federal government has as much as people have given to the federal government. We in North Dakota have not. Uh, we are very like our gun laws. It was funny you said you could switch. We love guns up here. It's
Mm-hmm.
constitutional carry, it's
Yeah.
castle law, and it's stand your ground.
Yeah.
So I vote locally like that, and I would love to get someone from my local election into a higher election at some point. But yeah, I just want to start locally starting to build up that person and finding people that you can continue to support. That way, the person. I just get I don't know either president. I don't know them. And I just, at this point, I feel so far removed. I'm like the weird generation between the boomers and the zoomers.
Mm-hmm.
And so my perspective is kind of got a polarity where it's both combined. We need to get off the phones and such, but yeah, so I don't know. I think that local's where to go, and we as a society need to start focusing locally and growing people that you can actually believe in, and then getting those people elected in some of these higher state roles and so on and so forth. We need to just start from the bottom and screw the top.
That's all really interesting stuff. Okay. Angel, any comments? I let him wander off too far. How about you, Clover?
No.
Okay.
No, but I am going
I was going to say something. Sorry, but
okay.
I was going to say Auntie had the best idea, but
yeah. Okay. All right.
I was going to say that you're doing it right down there in North Dakota. When you have the local mindset, that's the best mindset, because that's always going to be the solid foundation you need to launch from. If you don't have it strong locally, there's no point going up to the federal level or anything like that.
Right, because I don't have a foundation.
Yeah, because at least I can say if I ever wanted to, when I want to move, I still know there's other states out there that represent my values overall. Right now, I'm in California.
It's behind enemy lines.
I'm deep in enemy lines. Me and the few conservatives here, we have to really fight and claw to have any kind of conversations or anything out here. You have a Trump rally, the law is against you. They can come vandalize your car, break your windows of your house, and they won't be prosecuted. If you put any of that stuff on your sleeve, just know that it's open season on you here. You can be victimized criminally by the left out here, and nothing will happen to them. So it's dangerous for us out here to really be political out here. It happens. We still get together. We still have Trump rallies and stuff, but that comes with it. We know that could come with it, and we're not going to have any recourse on that. So you're doing it well out there. I think your legislature right now is 43 out of the 47 seats are Republican. I mean, you have a super majority out there in your state house right now, right?
Yeah, we're Fargo is the only place that ever votes blue in the entire elections. The entire rest of this state is, not that there's much of us, but it's red, and we outweigh them.
You have super majorities in both your Senate and your state house. So
tell people to have more kids too. I mean, I know I don't have kids. Didn't plan to, never planned to, didn't want to, but I am a sweet auntie. to all the kids out there that don't have a parent. And that's why I never got into that role, because I don't want my focus to be on my own children. I want it to be on all the other children that need someone to have a focus on. So, but, you know, getting to those youth, getting the conservative nuclear family back together, getting people to have more children and creating more influence. You've got all of these, like, that's where you're really going to get it, because you've got all these liberals changing their mind and not having kids and not getting together with people. I mean, boom, the next generation's gone from them. I mean, if we can just make everyone pop out a few more babies over here, then, or adoption and getting them, and, you know, getting to the youth too is a huge one, because if you can change kids' mind, you know, we may be looking at grim prospects now, but 10 years from now we won't be.
Yeah, my son will never vote leftist at all. Guys, I gotta step away for like 2 minutes. I'm gonna stop my cam. You guys keep talking. You guys are doing great. I'll be right back.
Yeah, sweet auntie, I agree. I agree with that because I have an adult. I have adult children already. I still want a couple more children before I get too old. And I'm already going to be a grandfather this year already in November. So yeah, and that's here in enemy lines. And my son is taking the lead of holding the community. He wants a community family, you know. And my brother's the same way. He wants to continue to uphold the strong nesting mentality, intergenerational mentality. And yeah, wherever I go, I'm the new patriarch of the family as a whole, because my father, he's now disabled. So I'm in that reins now. And wherever I go, that my son wants to bring his family and my brother wants to bring his family along. So they're kind of looking to me now as to what my next move's going to be. So that way they can make the arrangements to make that jump to keep the community together. So wherever we go, we have an influence wherever we go. Right.
Yeah, and I think being in California actually is a great place to start, or not start, but be in part of your journey, because if we can claim the West Coast over there, I mean, we would be in a great spot.
People forget that this country used to be a Republican stronghold not too long ago. This used to be a hard, deep red state, just like Texas. And that was all the way up until the mid 80s.
Well, Texas was opposite. California used to be red and Texas used to be blue.
Blue, yeah. Yep. And my family moved out here from Texas because of that. They wanted to go to a conservative area, and they did. And it was, and now look what they flipped back over. So now we have family in Texas still that are like, well, we stuck it out and look what happened. And I think that's an argument that's made, and there's legitimacy to it. You can stick it out if you're willing to. It can change, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's a extremely liberal city. And I got away from that way before 2020, thank goodness. I don't like city life. It's not for me. But yeah, I mean, they were blue, 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 blue. And then they kind of started wavering a little bit there, and they're still blue, but they're wavering. We're slowly getting to them, me and the other Dakota.
I think on the getting back to the kids topic, I think that one thing that especially if you don't have any kids, if you're young, if you know maybe you're not there yet, whatever the case may be, there's a big difference. You can get frustrated with the idea, and I get frustrated with this idea even when I get into debate, friendly banner conversation with people I disagree with sometimes. But you can get frustrated that you're not having immediate results, and what I mean by that is, you raise those kids in a very traditional environment. They obviously they've been taught a good foundation when it comes to morality, just everything, I guess, across the board, right? Everything they need to be productive citizens in this country, right? And you've done a good job with the parenting, and you can do a good job with the parenting, and you got to realize that young people, and it's just the nature of young people, will go through rebellion stages, right? And so I've seen this with my own kids, all of which are grown at this point. And I've got one that I've got the oldest one has long come out of the rebellious stage, and is doing wonderful. Got a great grasp on reality, productive member of society. The middle one is starting to come around, and the younger one is still squarely stuck in the whole rebellion stage. And I've seen this again, not just with my kids, but with others. So um, teach the things that need to be taught, right? Make sure that you make sure that they have all those tools and that foundation that they need, but then don't get discouraged if you don't raise from womb to tomb lifelong conservatives, because it's just human nature for kiddos to have that rebellion. And I say kiddos, when I say kiddos, it could be early and mid 20s, right? But it's natural to have that questioning the world type thing, questioning authority, rebellion stage. And so just trust the process, trust your teaching, trust your parenting, and things more often than not will work out.
Yeah, I'm a prime example. Like I said, I was brought about around traditional folk that were the most influential to me. And when I left and I stayed conservative. I just got more liberal in my conservatism, I guess. I kind of got more in the moderate, let's say. And so then, but through it all, once things started really hitting the fan, my brain was like, no, you need to go back to those roots, like what your family was talking about, like your grandparents were talking about this, and what's wrong with these things, and really put it in a perspective, and that is a grounding lesson.
Well, you need,
so you're right, you can come back to it.
Well, you need and the issue that brings that on is you need relatable life experiences, right? And young people don't have that yet. So they don't have that experience that happens in their life, and their mind goes back to when mom and dad or grandma and grandpa taught this lesson or told them about this specific thing. So it takes that experience to trigger that memory for them to go, oh, okay, now I get it. Because before then it was just words, right? They had a vague understanding maybe of what was going on, but it didn't affect them directly, and they couldn't make that leap, make that jump. And so life experience makes a huge difference.
Yeah,
it really does.
I could agree with that. Definitely seen it play out. My son, he went to the dark side too. When he turned 18, he said, "Screw you! I'm gonna go out and be a man with my girl. I'm moving to Florida." He moved all the way across the country. Then he moved to New Mexico after a couple years. And then after a couple years out there, he came back home broke with a hobo bag.
Right.
And now he's becoming even more hard right than me now. Over the last few years, he's now come all the way back to the roots, and he's in some cases even a little stiffer than me now. And that's saying a lot.
Right.
Do you consider yourself Republican? I'm curious.
Is that the auntie? Oh, that's me. I vote Republican. I voted Republican most of my life. But I am not a Republican in terms of my allegiance is I go out and say I'm Republican. No, I simply vote Republican because that's the party that represents the most of my core values. But I don't have an allegiance to the party just because they're an R. And it's just that they just happen to be the thing that represents me the most.
Yeah. I never vote straight ticket. So my ballot is a literal hodgepodge. There could be libertarians, independents, Republicans, Democrats that I vote for. And we're talking about down ballot voting. We're not talking about presidential election, because honestly, there's too many people that get disenfranchised, and especially with the division over national federal elections. And honestly, I don't give two craps whether you vote, even check a box as far as federal elections. But by God, you need to be doing your local, your city, state, county stuff for sure.
Yeah.
And do your homework, and that's why I say mine is a hodgepodge, because I'll do my homework. Now, even though I vote for them doesn't mean I vote for the winner. Let me back up and say that. But I will do my homework on the candidates, and then I will literally vote for the one that I think is the best match. And there are times that on especially a local level, the Democrat is the best match, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm constantly at the ballot box because I vote in all my local elections. I'm always voting and paying attention to the school board, the state controller, my local DA,
Yep.
all the time.
Yeah, our
And
county
trust
DA
me,
is Democrat,
yeah,
as a matter of fact, speaking of Democrat, but he's the best.
yeah,
I mean, he's the best on crime. And that's what directly affects, okay, is he pro-abortion? Probably. Is he, whatever goofy stuff. But as far as his office or whatever, which is the DA, he's the best choice. Like, I want crime to not be an issue.
yeah. And it's easy. It's easy for people to become black pilled, out here. And I do my best to not be black pilled. You got to come up with solutions. You got to, and that includes like Andrew. This is why he goes into those spaces and he battles with people in their own arena, because you have to. And people say, "Oh, you can't go in there and wrestle with the pig in the mud." It's like, well, this is politics. Politics is dirty. There's no clean politics. You're gonna get dirty. Politics is nothing but the mud pit, and you're just the two pigs going in there on from two sides to battle it out. That's just the reality. So that's always been a cop out to me. Go swim, wrestle with the pig and get dirty. It's like, that's all it is. And if you're not willing to do that, then you've already lost. You've already become black pilled at that point. And black pillery doesn't get you anywhere.
Hey, real quick, I've got to jump. I've got to go adult, but it's been fun.
Okay.
And so y'all enjoy. We'll catch you later.
Later, Clover.
Later, buddy. We'll talk guns later. I promise. Hey, sorry, guy, I was gone for a couple minutes. My wife needed the checkbook, and she didn't know where it was because we never use it. I had to go find it for her.
I was about to say, Clover, do you guys still use a checkbook?
Right. Who does that? And she's like, "Where is that?" I'm like, "That's a great question. I don't know. We haven't used that in a while."
I thought you were just hiding the money from her.
I was like, I don't know where it is, but it was actually exactly where I told her it was. She just was not actually looking where it needed to be. So anyway, great discussion we're having this afternoon. It's really good. The interesting thing is how we're all kind of saying the same things. It's going to be interesting to see the next election cycle, what that brings. And I'm really curious to see how we continue to evolve as a party, I guess, or lack of party or whatever. This is a question I've been dying to ask, and I don't really have enough people here to ask it, but I'm going to do it anyway. Well, I'll ask it again later. What is traditional now? Right? Because I feel like I'm fairly traditional, but I look at my grandparents and I'm nothing like what they were, and they were nothing like their grandparents. So what is traditional these days?
Well, that was a good one. That's why I think you probably should have held this for another conversation. I know that seems like a simple question,
because it's going to be.
But that's a lot to unpack, Grid. I know it seems like it's a simple question. It's not, because that comes down to.
I wouldn't have asked if it was simple. I would just give a sermon, and that would be that. But it's not simple.
I can simplify it, I think. What do you want to know? What's traditional now versus what was traditional, and somehow there was a gradation of downgrade, where we had a generation of people that believed the authority figures and the teachers before they believed the students. And then you had rebellious kids that slowly, I'm not going to be like them. I'm not going to be like them. And now the new traditional, I would say, is this is how I kind of look at it. You can tell when someone was born where their parents listened to the teacher, and you can tell when someone was born and the parent listened to the child. And those are our two sides of the traditional. So our pre-traditional would be where a teacher could call and you would be punished for whatever that teacher said because the teacher was right. And then now the teacher's wrong and the kid is right, and they will make a campaign against the teacher. That's the new traditional.
The best way I could break this down is that it's going to what you said, Britt, about how you saw that your great grandparents down to your grandparents, there was a deviation for sure in terms of what was considered traditional. It's chain links. That the chain link keeps, as you go down the chain links, eventually you get one that either cracks or just breaks altogether. And it's not a matter of, when it's going to happen or when it is going to happen. And that I could tell you right now that break for our culture and our family, it occurred in my dad's generation. My grandparents, my great grandparents, and my great great grandparents were pretty much all straight ticket, pretty much the same. There was really no deviation for generations, and that the first major deviation occurred in my dad's generation, for sure. I mentioned it here on the panel before that because of that, my grandfather, he punished all of them when it came to the empire because of that. Their deviation from the culture and the traditional values he set forth, he punished them all. He gave them a small pittance while giving the majority to his wife, my grandmother, to take care of her for life. And then he gave the last major majority to his church and gave them a little pittance. And like I said, at the end of the day, it's not because it has to continue that way. It's just that it's going to happen, and it's up to you and in the culture you come from to build it back up and then weld the break, weld it back together again and start it again. That's it. The problem is like today, the culture is so weak across the board for a lot of people. They don't do that. They don't take the pieces that broke apart and then weld them back together again. They just leave it that way. They leave them as broken pieces and just keep it moving. And that's what we got to get back to. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing with my son. My son's doing it. My brother, some of my cousins, we're all trying to do that. We're taking that chain and we're welding it back together again because our parents, God bless them, God love them, they messed it up. That's just the reality. They messed it up. They broke it. And now the next generation after them, it's up to us to decide to fix it and weld it back together or just leave it. And we decided overwhelmingly to weld it back together because we enjoyed it. We tell stories all the time about that are vastly different from our parents. Our parents complain about their parents all the time. But we got the same treatment from them when we were kids, and we have nothing but great stories to tell about them. How's that work out that way? So, yeah. So
I think it's interesting because I feel like what traditional is today is not the same as traditional 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And that wasn't the same as traditional 100 years ago. So I think that when we're trying to explain or express what traditional is, we're really talking about what values that we hold. And we use the word traditional, I think wrongly, to be honest. Because I don't know because I can't explain what traditional is in America because we're not a traditional country, really, right? Like we have Angel there who's Berber and Spanish or Mexican or Latin or whatever. I'm not really sure what the precise mix is, and I'm not sure he is either. I don't know. But he has a long history of his family being in the States and built an empire from the sounds of it. And so, my history is certainly not true. I mean, I have in my history, I have a riverboat gambler that knifed somebody. I have one of on my grandfather's side, one of his uncles, I think, or maybe a great uncle. I think it was an uncle. Rode with Frank James of the James Gang. So I wouldn't say that we know what traditional is in this country. We have a modern idea of tradition, which is where we look to the past and say, well, this is ideally what we should have. I don't know that that's exactly correct. I do believe that we can say that Christian values are needed today. And by definition, then you have to have a patriarchy. We need to move away from feminism. Feminism is certainly not traditional in any point in history, or helpful.
It's unique to the West. It's unique to the West, Grid.
It is exactly unique to the West. It's never been traditional in any way, shape, or form. So I think that we can be pretty fair in saying that we have to get rid of that, or we have to move away from it, I guess. You can't. We can't say
men and
that
women to like each other again.
I'm sorry?
We got to get men and women to like each other again, really.
Well, I think we like each other fine. I think that what we don't like is we don't like our relationships.
Yes, I mean, there's just a lot of men hate and lady hate online. Like we're getting into this point where now couples aren't coupling because there's, yeah. Keep going. You had a point too.
Oh, it's okay. I enjoy listening.
Yeah, I just think we've come from a place where, like I said, the nuclear family, it's like my Pee Wee Herman word of the day, because we've gotten so far from that. I think each generation has slowly lost pieces of what we would, I guess, consider 30 years ago traditional, which was having a huge piece of land that your family tended and that you made more family to attend. And then you could have more land with more family. And, people stayed closer together. Other cultures do that as well. They keep their generations close to them. They do not just send them off into the wilderness. And, but with like social media and all of that, we've moved into a modernity that has created more division among us people, not just as one party or another party, but now we're split down the middle between who's better, men or women. And it's toxic.
Hey, Sweet Tea. It's funny you say that because I've said that all before too, in terms of, and this is no dig at my Slavic and my Anglo-Saxon brothers and sisters here in America, but your Slavic brothers and sisters have maintained what you used to maintain here, and you've let it go here. The Arabs, which I am, Latino, we've all maintained that. Slavics to Orient. They've all maintained this. This is all an Anglo-Saxon issue where you see it concentrated in Western Europe and America and Canada for a reason. That's a cultural issue that you used to share that with the rest of us, but you left that behind. You kind of move away from your families. If you get rich and wealthy, you don't really go back to the base. You kind of start a base somewhere else and you kind of don't look back. And that's not a dig, but overall, that's what you see. Even the farmers in the rural areas do that now. They don't. It's not a problem to live in the rural area. The issue is if you're moving so far away from each other and so spread out from each other in those rural areas that it doesn't matter because you don't have a community to coalesce and focus power in. And that's what you used to do, but you don't do it anymore. And there's a reason why when you go to urban areas, you have entire areas that are Russian controlled, Hispanic controlled, Arab controlled, Indian controlled, because we all, even if we get rich and go away, overwhelmingly, we still come back in some way. We don't just say goodbye, elders, good luck, we're rich. We don't need to see you no more. That's not typically how it works. But among all my Anglo-Saxon friends, they all do that. They move across the country from each other and they only send a letter or talk to their parents on the phone or text or a social media message here and there. They don't really keep in touch with their grandparents if they have them. I mean, that's a foreign concept to me and a lot of us in other cultures. That's kind of foreign still. Even like the Indians, they have their industrial revolution right now, and they're gonna catch up. If they maintain their culture while doing that, they're going to become the next powerhouse.
Yeah, we are far scraped from where we used to be, and culturally, that's the reason. Like I would admit that my own mother is part and father are both part of what is wrong with America. They are two people who just abandoned their families and then went off and did their own thing, became terrible people, ended up just kind of living and coasting through life off of other people, and then popping out a few humans along the way, without any regard for or interest in raising. So, it just keeps creating this, like I see all these women on the whatever podcast, it's creating them. It's creating men that, they even say on some of those, that statistically, 80% of criminals are in jail are from single mother households. And I have every reason in the world and excuse to be a sociopathic murderer, but I am not, because I saw what it was and chose to be different, despite everything around me. And we need our culture to figure out how to do that too. Because if we keep getting angry at the previous generation or the next generation, we just got to stop being so pitted against each other. And we got to start, there shouldn't be 8 lawnmowers on one city block. There should be a community of people that all share.
And I want you all to succeed. I mean, we understand a lot of don't believe the left hype. Don't believe the leftist hype that they make you believe that all the other cultures hate the Anglo-Saxons. No, we love the Slavics, so why wouldn't we like the Anglo-Saxons? It doesn't make any sense. We want you to succeed because we know we all succeed. We've seen what happens in the U.S. with your success. It lifts other boats. There's a reason why the Indians and the Orient, even if you don't agree with their politics and their system, they're coming up because competition breeds excellence. It breeds prosperity. But at this rate, all you're being held up by in America right now is your overwhelming wealth. That's not going to hold you out forever because eventually money goes away. You need that hard cultural foundation to continue to sustain that prosperity.
That's hot air. I mean, it's not backed by gold. It's a
We're
a gas tank that's got
we never should have been backed by gold anyway, but that's beside the point.
But that's besides the point. You need that culture there because if you have the strong culture, you can survive all the hard times and you'll be okay. You'll be all right.
So a couple of things. I like all of you guys have had a great discussion there, but I want to make a couple. First of all, I'm going to read Glenn's super chat because I really, really appreciate the $10. I know that it's big. I know it means a lot. So traditional can simply be defined as respecting and honoring the patriarchy. In just doing that, we are able to understand the importance of God's instructions for us to follow. Now, see, that's actually pretty darn close. So we talk a lot about how we were, but the reality is that we've been a nation of degens for 200 years. I mean, we were not this, while we were Christian but we were not this super based culture. There were all kinds of criminals and there were literal whorehouses everywhere. Like every town had one. And it was actually a reputable job in the West and in New York City. New York City had actual whorehouses. It wasn't really until modernity started rearing its ugly head that these sort of things became important, because with modernity, life gets easier. You have more time. Less time is spent surviving, looking around and bitching about things. And so this is where we all start getting this. This is where it all starts to kind of go wrong. And one of the biggest places it went wrong, we were actually managing it okay. We were managing modernity pretty damn good right up until until about 63, 64, and two very important things happened. The 50s kind of rock and roll movement kind of morphed a little bit there, and became counterculture, and counterculture was aided by a much larger use of drugs and birth control. Those three things enabled counterculture to take a firm grasp, and instead of being able to manage modernity, we became consumed by it. And then we had the Vietnam War. And the Vietnam War was important because a lot of our young men who ordinarily would have come back and voted and kept and more or less kept us in line, I feel like, well, they weren't here anymore because they died. And when we have this sort of this idea, as we move further and further along into modernity, traditional becomes this ideal that may or may not have ever existed. Certainly it did exist in clusters, but it wasn't a widespread. I don't believe it is as widespread as we would like it to believe, it. Now, absolutely it was. There were state churches in all 13 states, and that only went away much later. Much later. And at the same time, we need to acknowledge that most of our land was lawless. Things that we consider immoral today were perfectly fine. Even things that we do that were considered immoral then and are considered immoral today were tolerated a little more, because that's just kind of the way it was. And plus, people were busy surviving. People were busy building lives and running ranches, and trying to make a business succeed, or just getting up and going to work in the morning. And then life got really and then to the 70s and 80s, life just kept getting easier and easier, and now degeneracy, which had been kind of like this big but manageable part of society, becomes unmanageable at that point. And the leftists take hold. Well, all we needed then was the perfect breeding ground for communism to come in. And communism's bad in all its forms. So everything you're saying is pretty accurate. It's just, I don't think that we need to, this idea of traditional is very strange to me, which is why I never use the word traditional, really. I use words like patriarchy and Christian and morality, but traditional is very hard for me to define. And I just don't think that I think it's so hard for me to define that I just don't use it generically. I do say traditional sometimes because I can look back into the 50s and that's kind of where I look at traditional modern life in the 50s was pretty good. We'll never get back traditional is, but it needs to actually be along traditional lines. If that makes sense, I'm not sure that makes sense. You guys can feel free to comment. I'm sorry. I kind of ran my mouth off into a sermon again.
No, I agree completely. I think when you use the word traditional, you're not speaking about a system where there were just set values, traditions, and practices throughout the entire existence of the country. You're just using it as a reference point for more recent things, nuances in history. But I agree completely with Glenn and you that I know in our cultures have had the same little shifts in terms of what was acceptable at other time in history versus what it is now. Not as drastic as the Western Europeans, but the one thing that's held our culture up still is that we're still patriarchal cultures on all ends that we're a part of. We're still patriarchal. From the Latino side, patriarchal. From the Arab side, highly patriarchal. That's just the constant factor in managing our cultures. And that's what America used to be too. And it's vastly slipped away from that, unfortunately. And I'm a proud American, and to see my other American brothers and sisters give up on the culture that was able to manage their success and prosperity so well, at least temporarily give up on it is saddening to see. Um, I hate seeing y'all bully each other over race. That really irritates my soul. I have to step in when I see that and stop another person telling another person about calling them bigot and racist. That
I don't
bothers
even
me to no
understand
end.
why that's even an issue these days. That's
Yeah,
just really stupid to me. But
because to us, I know us as Americans, but we have other cultures that are behind us. Look at that. We go think to ourselves, you realize that if you go to Central America and South America, just south of the border, you can't say
Angel,
that stuff to people out there. Oh, wait a minute. Am I breaking up or something?
yeah, you kind of broke up a little bit.
Okay. I saw it too on my end. We won't tolerate that down there. They're not going to tolerate. You go to the Middle East and to Northern Africa, you start spouting that nonsense there, you're going to get a very harsh response as well. Disheartening to see you all attack each other in your own culture when you used to have a unified culture that you could stand behind, and it led to this great nation being prosperous. And my grandfather, my great grandparents, like I said before, my great grandfather, he helped expand into the West. He was part of the railroad building out here. My grandfather, he moved from Texas out to California to start a new community out here, and he built his empire out here. Um, and all of his Anglo-Saxon friends actually took part in that. They helped him build like some of his homes. He would get his group of friends together, have some beers, have a cigar, and they would come and help him build, like put in sprinkler systems or put in new plumbing into another one of his houses. And then he would do the same for them. Like whatever skills they needed that they didn't have and he had, he would go help his friends out, and then vice versa. And then they would all give each other a free big dinner and things like that. That's how it used to work. That's how all these ranches and stuff were built. It's not built by one man. You would get a group of friends together to help you with skills that they had that you didn't have to build that land up. And it's disheartening to see that's not what I see no more. It's quickly fleeting because everyone that I know that, like I was just talking about, they all fled. They all fled to the rulers, and they keep fleeing further and further and further away. And you keep spreading themselves out so thin that they don't have that sense of really tight knit community no more by doing so.
Yeah. A goalie, yes, we can build buildings untaxed in the U.S. As long as we have to have them inspected. But yeah, doesn't matter. We will have property tax, but that's a different deal. Building the building is not a big deal. It's owning it that ends up being the big deal. So yeah, I mean, I'm sitting in a shed on my property right now, and I didn't pay any tax for it. I did have to get a building permit though. Sweet Tea, do you have anything really to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think we're almost kind of circling a little, but I agree that culture has kind of dropped to this. Instead of taking a village and understanding you need the village, everyone's been taught that you can do it on your own. And so that individualism and that independence has created a society of independent people. And so the village is gone.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong about that. I think that's actually not a bad way to put it. I will add something here, and then then I think we're gonna wrap up because I normally wrap up at 3, but I stretched a little long. That's okay. That's no big deal. So I think it's an interesting conversation to have, especially on the political side of it. I didn't really mean to kind of get into this leg of it, but it was fine. It was great. It was a good conversation. I liked it. Most of what you guys had to say. I think the one takeaway that I had 2 takeaways. Number one, we need to promote other creators, articles, journalists, whatever. if you see it and it's conservative, now I do think that it's better than it used to be, because I noticed a lot more stuff on my Facebook feed coming through these days is conservative, and obviously they hide the leftist stuff from me. But at least it's getting shared. At least there are people out there that are sharing stuff. But I still think that we, the ground roots thing, the biggest ground roots thing or grassroots thing, ground level, that we can do is literally promote every voice in the space that you can. That's, at least being honest, right? And like I do. At least I try to, and I try and share the people who entertain me on a conservative level. The second thing I think is that we have an issue on the right defining what things are. The left doesn't have that issue because they don't bother to define it. They just hate it all equally. So they don't need to define it. Matter of fact, they prefer to define it wrong so that when you correct them, you look like a pedantic idiot. So. Any final thoughts, Sweet Tea or Angel?
No, just say thank you for letting me be on the panel. It was a lot of fun, and I enjoy communicating with like-minded individuals.
Yeah, so tonight will be, I go back on at 8. I don't normally do a daytime on Wednesday, but I just have said hell with it. I just do it anyway. So tonight I'll do my normal stream. And Kat should be here for that. And that's more of that's less politics, less of this kind of discussion, and more relationship, men's advocacy, that kind of thing. And men and women stuff instead of the political stuff. So if you want to, feel free to catch it. Angel, anything?
Yeah, I just like to say that I'm not black-pilled on where we're going here in our country. I am uplifted. This is by people like you now, Glenn, Andrew, and Speakeasy, who I give a lot of praise to on this channel. It's a young man coming up who's an example of someone trying to do right now in the world, despite all of his mistakes. And I call you guys the Four Horsemen. I think Raging does it as well. We're a Four Horsemen of truth and sense and sense. It's uplifting to see that you're coming out from different aspects of life. LA is where Glenn is fighting the fight. In Cali with me out here. He's come out. He's putting himself out there. You come out of the rural part of Tennessee. And you're putting a face to it. You're putting your face out there. And it's not like you're doing anything like, something crazy unique. No, you're taking that step to put yourself out there and start getting involved in the culture. And it takes a lot to get involved in the culture war. And I know a lot of people don't like that, but that is what you got to do. And Andrew, especially, that's my guy. He's knee deep in the culture war, but it's nothing crazy. These panels and things actually do a lot more reach than you think. Look at me, for example. I support you. I support Andrew. I support Glenn. I support Speakeasy. I support these guys financially because I believe in what you're doing. And it's grassroots level stuff. Remember, online is the new public square. So if you're online doing this is the public square now. You're the equivalent of the guy out with his pamphlets. He used to be standing on the street corners. You're those guys now. You're the guys with the pamphlets now. And just with me alone, my son now is being turned to you guys. And my father now. My father is even being turned to you guys. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Very good.
I just say keep it up. Don't get black-pilled. Things can change. They changed. They were one way. They changed another. They can change back. It'll just take time, though. You got to be patient.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, guys. I am going to end the stream. You guys have a great rest of your day. I'm going to send you over to Jim Bob. Jim Bob's being very funny. I don't know who he's making fun of today, but he is making fun of somebody, and it is
my boy Jim Bob. Awesome.
So you guys will love that. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and just be cool. We'll see you tonight.